Some people were frightened as they screamed, asking if their leader was okay. The protagonist seemed to be in bad shape. A team member urgently told him to open his eyes. Hearing that, the protagonist woke up with a pained expression. "What happened to the subjugation?" he asked. One of the men had tears streaming down his face. "The subjugation was a success," he said. "We managed to defeat the final boss." The protagonist smiled weakly. "We really did accomplish it," he thought. This creature had been far superior to all others. It had taken 3 years to capture, with hundreds of people losing their lives along the way. His companion told him, "Don't close your eyes." The girl added, "The medical team is already on the way." The protagonist wondered if his friends thought he was a fool. "Half of my body is already gone," he muttered. He then looked at the crying girl. "Gather the rest of the team," he said. "After that, we can finally move on from everything that's happened." Heading to another world, he added, "I can only apologize for now." The protagonist had been Korea's first hunter and the one who established the hunter system, but he met his end at the hands of the last boss in the dungeons. Elsewhere, someone slapped a boy on the head. Those people were several boys trying to bully him. A red-haired teenager asked, "Did you really not buy us the snacks?" Surrounding the boy, they said, "Your friend must be joking." However, the one being bullied was our hero, and he thought those kids had made him their lackey in his previous life. The protagonist remembered falling, wondering if he had truly been eliminated since he couldn't move. A voice spoke. "Humanity can now belong to its race. Joonwu has been eliminated, and no one is left to stop us." While falling, the MC told the voice, "Stop talking nonsense. There are still plenty of hunters to defeat the monsters." He continued, "We've learned everything about those creatures and built various weapons to prepare for the final battle. There will be even stronger hunters." The voice responded, "The system I created isn't bad. I will return in 40 years. Upon hearing that, our hero asked, "Repeat that." The being said, "When I return, I hope humanity will truly have many resources to fight against my race." The MC replied, "When that happens, the monster will be nothing more than a cockroach compared to humankind." And in another place, he opened his eyes. The boy was somewhat confused and wondered if he was in a hospital. He said, "I've forgotten many things and can't remember something important." But he knew that just moments before, he had been fighting the final boss called Gigantiana. Looking at himself in the mirror, our hero asked, "Whose face is that?" Taking the mirror in his hands, the protagonist wondered if he had turned back into a teenager. But that's impossible, he thought. This face doesn't resemble mine at all. He said, "I'll need to gather as much information as possible to figure out where I am." In another place, a man accompanied by a doctor said, "The boy has finally woken up." This person approached, saying, "I'm a police officer and I'm here to ask you some questions." The officer gave the MC's information, but the boy replied, "I was actually born in 1975. After hearing that, the man and the doctor looked confused, wondering if the boy was out of his mind. The officer asked, "Can you remember what happened before the accident?" Our hero said, "I can only remember that I took a lot of damage while fighting monsters in Gigantiana." The officer turned to the doctor and asked, "Is Joonwu insane?" But the doctor said the boy needed more rest before being questioned again. However, he kept asking if the boy really thought he was the hunter Joonwu. The doctor replied that it was normal for someone to see illusions after an accident. Our MC asked what situation he was in. Upon hearing that, the man realized the boy couldn't remember anything. Then he said that on the previous day, the protagonist had been ambushed by Banksy, but since it was very early in the morning, there were no witnesses. He asked if the boy really couldn't remember anything that had happened, but our MC didn't answer. The policeman sighed, placing his hands on his shirt. "I understand the situation," he said, handing a card to Joonwu. "If you remember anything, you can call me." Leaving the room, the doctor told the protagonist to rest, but before he went, our MC said he needed something. A bit confused, the doctor asked what the boy wanted. The protagonist then asked the man to tell him what year it was. The doctor answered, "It's the year 2015. After hearing this, the MC was shocked. Trying to stand, the boy said, "This can only be a lie." In the next moment, he opened the curtains of his room. While thinking he must have misheard, he says that Su was a ghost city. It ended up like that because of battles against monsters. That was where the homeless stayed, with the refugees suffering all kinds of mistreatment. And he says he can't believe it has changed so much. Looking around, he sees several buildings all over the city with families enjoying themselves. Children are wearing happy expressions. With tears streaming down his face, RMC says that with this view, he believes his comrades did a good job. While still watching, he wonders if his friends are still alive. And since 42 years have already passed, they're probably together by now. However, in the next moment, he realizes that all those years have passed and his expression turns shocked. He says to himself, 42 years have gone by, and according to that voice, it wouldn't be long before the monsters appear again. But suddenly, the entire building begins to tremble. The megaphone starts announcing that there is a serious crisis in the hospital. Upon hearing that, the protagonist becomes alarmed and wonders what is happening. Somewhere else, a portal appears and many people flee in fear. Someone shouts to call a hunter association. Our hero started running out of the hospital, while thinking he could see how much monster subjugation had improved after 42 years. He arrived in a place where many people were gathered. After observing what was happening, he was surprised. He wondered what was going on with those people that made them stand in front of the portal. A soldier was saying, "A hunter will take part. Everyone should stay away from the portal so they won't get hurt. In 10 minutes, we'll lure the monster out of the dungeon." Hearing this, the MC got angry. He wondered why they were doing this. He remembered asking his companions if they understood what he had said. He shook his head and said he would repeat it. When the monster leaves the dungeon, the hunters lose control of the area. The MC said, "It's common for the city to be wiped out when that happens. Subjugation should happen inside the dungeon. It's a rule that can never be broken." He then asked, "Do you understand?" The men responded, "We won't forget it." In the present, the protagonist was moving through the crowd, muttering, "The guards are crazy." A reporter asked, "Are you ready to start broadcasting?" But before they began, the MC stopped them. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked, questioning why they were getting the monsters out of the dungeon. Because monsters are children's playthings, and it made no sense. However, before he could finish speaking, people began to applaud and cheer for the arrival of a huntress. There were some guards in front of a car. Someone started getting out of it while everyone applauded. The woman's name was Go. After she arrived, the journalists started taking lots of pictures. Our hero was surprised and wondered if she was a modern-era hunter. Since she was very young, he couldn't tell what her abilities were. The girl who appeared began to walk toward the portal, and a light appeared on her wrist as she activated something. The system window said that permission was granted and the use of B-grade abilities was activated. A guard shouted that monsters were coming out of the dungeon. A creature, crackling with lightning across its body, appeared and stood in front of the woman. An ice-based ability began to manifest on the girl's sword. The monster then charged toward her, but without any difficulty the woman managed to dodge. She attacked the monster with her sword, successfully striking it. Some girls were watching. One of them said it was amazing, while another mentioned that Go looked like she was dancing as she fought. A boy pointed at her and said, "When I grow up, he would also become a hunter who protected people," and our MC was observing the situation with an awkward smile. Returning to the fight, the girl took a leap. She then rushed toward the monster, which was also attacking her. She launched several ice spikes at the creature. All of her strikes hit the werewolf's body. With those attacks, the monster was defeated. People were very impressed and started shouting her name multiple times. Seeing this, the protagonist began to laugh. However, with an indignant expression, he said it shouldn't be like that, and asked if that was what she called a subjugation. Our MC thought everything had turned into a mess. A novice hunter was acting like a celebrity, relying only on her abilities to fight. The support was truly ridiculous since it didn't even back up the main attacker. He believed the worst part of it all was what she had just done, performing a subjugation in a real-life situation, with many variables and numerous civilians around. In the next moment, our MC kicked the camera that was filming. One of the guards got angry and asked what the boy thought he was doing. The protagonist questioned, "Are you crazy? Bringing monsters out of the engine and fighting them where there are civilians?" Because if a monster leaves the dungeon, it can adapt to that environment and go berserk. The man looked confused after hearing this. While our MC kept talking about various issues, people were recording and asking if he wasn't just a student. He continued, saying that the support was terrible. Hearing this, the guys got irritated. The protagonist asked, "Do you really think this is a subjugation? It looks more like a street performance." However, the girl asked, "Are you from the academy?" She added, "What I showed was everything we learned in class." She then said, "Heroes are very ethic, but you shouldn't think everything is taught by the instructors. The battlefield is much different from the rumors you've heard." The MC replied, "Did you really call that a battlefield?" With a menacing look, he questioned, "How dare you say such things in front of me?" After seeing the MC's gaze, the girl looked frightened. But before he could continue speaking, the guard surrounded him, saying he couldn't act that way. The MC didn't care. "Is your name Go Giants?" he asked. "If you continue with that skill level, you should be ashamed to call yourself a hunter." However, the girl merely muttered to herself, "This feels like school," and it was difficult. After hearing that, the protagonist was a bit confused. Elsewhere, he sighed as he remembered the voice saying it would return in 42 years. Recalling those words, he thought, if things continued like this, everything would be over. The hunters were weaker than just any monster. He needed to prepare for the calamity. But at the next moment, he thought there might still be a chance. His group might still be alive. If he could contact them, he could do something. Yet he wondered how he could find them. He couldn't just ask around randomly. The boy said he still had a shot. The girl from earlier mentioned an academy for hunters. That meant someone must have created it in the last 30 years. Only that person could have done it. Our hero remembered asking his friend if he really wanted to create a school. His companion said that was exactly it. If the war ended, he wanted to build an academy to look after the next generation. He also said Joonwu should choose the name. Upon hearing that, the protagonist asked if he really should do it. With a calm expression, he said the academy could be called Korea Hunter College. The man replied that the name was too simple and wouldn't attract any attention. In the present, our MC stood in front of a school, wondering if his companion had really given it that name. He remarked to himself that this school was quite large. Someone then asked, "What are you doing here? Are you a student? I've never seen you around." The protagonist responded, "It's none of that. I'm just looking for someone." Upon hearing this, the old man said, "If you've come looking for Yun, you should leave." The protagonist quickly clarified, "That's not the case either." He paused before asking, "Do you know someone named Biwoik?" At the mention of the name, the man's expression changed, becoming confused. "Are you talking about my boss?" he asked. "Exactly," the MC replied. "I'd like to meet the owner." The old man shook his head. "Someone who isn't a student can't see the director. Are you a special admission student?" The protagonist frowned. "What does that mean?" He thought for a moment, but then said, "Well, I guess you could say I am a special student. If that's the case, follow me," the guard instructed. The protagonist couldn't help but wonder why the guard was looking at him as if he felt sorry for him. The two entered the building, and after a few minutes, something startled the MC. The reason was that there was a portrait of his old body inside the room. Seeing it, the boy asked why it was there. The guard replied, "You should stop yelling in the school." Upon hearing this, the MC apologized, though he blushed, wondering why his friend had put a giant portrait of him at the entrance. As the two walked, they found several pictures scattered all over the walls. One of them had a quote. Hunter Joonwu stated that adventurers were made of 99% willpower and 1% talent. After seeing this, the MC wondered if he had really said something like that since he didn't remember it. A few seconds later, they reached the director's office. The guard knocked on the door. "Apologies," he said. "A boy would like to speak with your boss." A man's voice replied, "You can both come in." Before the protagonist met the school director, the guard warned him, "Don't do anything foolish." Once they entered, the guard said, "The special student who was transferred has arrived." Upon hearing this, the man seemed confused. "I don't remember any special student entering this year," he said. The guard explained, "You two can talk. I'll go do my job." After the guard left, the protagonist's expression grew serious as he looked at Wushik. The director was walking toward our MC, saying that this situation was quite strange. With a serious expression, he stated that he hadn't heard of any special student passing the admission process. He then asked, "Who is the boy in front of me?" and added, "If you can't explain what you're doing here, the boy will be punished." However, the MC didn't seem to care. He only asked, "How is my friend doing?" The man was confused by what he heard since he didn't know this person. The protagonist continued saying, "I almost didn't recognize my friend. He looks like an old man now." He asked, "Can Wu recognize me?" and added, "My name is Joonwu." The man was baffled. He said, "In my whole life, I've never seen someone so crazy," before going to pick up the phone. He called the guard and said, "The boy who's here needs to be removed. We shouldn't allow random people into my office." But in the next moment, the protagonist asked, "Where is Sun Yang?" The man asked, "How do you know that name?" The protagonist replied, "A girl used to chase after this woman, but she was always rejected. There's no way I could forget." Then he asked, "Did my friend manage to marry her?" Upon hearing this, the director ran toward thee. In the next moment, he grabbed Joonwu by the collar and shouted, "Who the hell is the protagonist, and why are you saying those things?" Our hero started laughing. "I never imagined Wook would grab me," he said, an irritated expression crossing his face. A school director is really quite daring. After seeing this, the man stopped holding the protagonist and looked shocked. The protagonist began to dust off his shirt. "I've told my friend many times," he said, "that even if we're facing the greatest monsters or the most powerful people, we must maintain control. If you don't, your target will escape." Hearing this, the director grew frightened. "Are you my leader?" he asked. Some years ago, at the subjugation management headquarters, someone had been shouting, "What is everyone doing?" That person was holding a blade to a woman's neck while demanding, "Bring me medicine and food." The MC asked what had happened. A man explained the young guy was expelled from his base because he has a disease and is now looking for medicine. The protagonist asked, "Is that true?" The man replied, "We suspect it's correct. His brother has the same disease." Our hero began to think about what to do. Then he started walking toward the person who was holding the woman hostage. Seeing this, his companion wondered what their leader was trying to do. The man shouted loudly, "Back off. Don't come any closer or the girl will be eliminated." However, our boy didn't care and kept walking. Seeing that, the young man said, "If the protagonist gets any closer, that girl will really be done for." But the MC replied, "Do whatever you want. Hearing that, both of them were confused, while the woman asked, "Am I hearing things correctly?" The protagonist said, "I'm telling the truth. No one will care if she's eliminated with all the monsters roaming the city." The young man was about to say something, but the MC asked, "Don't have the courage to do it?" He then said, "If you want the medicine to save your brother, you should try eliminating everyone here to get it." Upon hearing that, the man was surprised. Continuing, he said, "To save someone, another person has to be eliminated. That's how we live. Whether it's monsters or people, it doesn't matter. If you're going to do something, do it properly. But if you can't even manage that, stop wasting your time on useless things and just get eliminated alongside his brother." After hearing that, the man was stunned. In the next moment, he threw the woman aside and began advancing toward our hero. He tried to strike the protagonist with his blade, but the MC easily dodged. Then, he grabbed the man's arm. Without any difficulty, he performed a judo throw. After that throw, the side character cursed. The next moment, he was slammed to the ground. The man tried to get up, his face twisted with anger. He said he will eliminate our boy, cursing the MC even more. He attempted to slash him again with his blade. With a smile on his face, Joonwu said, "That's the spirit." A system window popped up, stating that the user had equipped an item. However, without any difficulty, the protagonist parried the man's attack. Then he put his finger in front of the man's face. The system window announced the user would use the skill Explosive Flick. In the next moment, our hero landed a blow that sent the side character flying, crashing into the wall. The man passed out from the hit. Joonwu called his companion. "We should look for the man's younger sister. She might be nearby, and I still have medicine for her." But the guy said, "Our leader should reconsider." Because the girl had a disease that could be transmitted, but our hero didn't care. If that were really true, the man would have already been eliminated. He said his companion should go quickly. Upon hearing that, the young man went to do what the protagonist ordered. The MC said his friends should take that person to their base and give him food. Woik was about to ask something, but our hero said that was exactly it. From that moment on, they were all companions, part of the same team. In the present, the protagonist's friend was asking if he really was that person because he looked like a child. Upon hearing that, the MC said he also had no idea what had happened and had just woken up in that body. The director kept observing our hero, but felt a bit embarrassed. Joonwu said his friend seemed not to believe any of it. The man said that was obvious. No one would believe that someone who was eliminated would come back looking like a child. The MC said it would be better to tell him what happened the first time they went hunting. After hearing this, Wood punched the protagonist. Elsewhere, the guard was running toward the director's office. The reason was that Woik had called him, saying the guard would remove the boy from his office. The special student admissions program was designed to attract talented individuals to the school, which is why he believed the boy had been specially selected. Standing at the door of the director's office, he said, "I'm here to apologize." As he stepped inside, someone shouted, "Stay focused." It turned out our protagonist was making Woik rehearse his apology. After witnessing this scene, the guard looked confused and quietly stepped away. The protagonist kept encouraging him, "Keep going. Don't stop." A few minutes later, the protagonist looked frustrated, while Woik seemed a bit embarrassed. "My face hurts," the protagonist muttered. The director then addressed them, offering an apology for what happened to Woik. "I only reacted that way because he mentioned his first mission," the director explained. "The world has changed a lot," the protagonist replied. The director nodded. "Yes, and to someone like your friend, it must feel unfamiliar." "It's obvious," the protagonist continued. "Even monster subjugation isn't the same anymore. Just yesterday, I saw a group of hunters bringing a monster out of a dungeon." Woik asked, "Do you mean the one near the hospital?" "You already know what I'm thinking," the protagonist said. "Why are they doing that?" Woik asked, troubled. The man let out a deep sigh. Ever since our leader sacrificed himself during the last mission, the world became very peaceful and powerful monsters almost never appeared. Our hero asks, "Is that why they're bringing monsters into the streets?" The MC yells, "There's a limit to how reckless people can be." The director responds, "There are other reasons as well. Because there's no danger, it's hard to get sponsorship from big companies. That's why we have to do all these things." And now, the director continues, "The hunters are becoming celebrities and the way subjugations were handled before has changed." Our boy says it's not too late to change all this nonsense. He adds, "Since my friend is the director of the Hunter Academy, you could change things." The man replies, "I've already mentioned it once. Because high-ranking people are involved, I can't change the educational system by myself." The MC suggests if we reunite with our companions, we might be able to do something. But the director counters, "The other members are the high-ranking people. And though I hate to say it, there are several members of my team who wouldn't be happy about your return." The MC asked, "Is that what you think too?" The director is surprised. It's not that at all. Our hero sighs, "Everything has been a mess since I returned." Woik says his friends shouldn't think that way because the world was free from attacks and their leader could start a new life now. However, Our boy says that the final boss would be revived. After hearing this, the director is a bit confused. Then he asks our hero to repeat himself. The protagonist repeats that the final monster would return. Woik is confused and asks if Gigantiana would really return. The protagonist says that's exactly it. Even if I didn't want to believe it, that's the reality. When I was about to be eliminated, I heard a voice saying the final boss would return in 42 years. Woik says that can't be true and asks if his friend misheard. The MC asks, do you not believe me? You've seen someone return after 42 years, but you don't believe the most powerful creature could do the same. The director feels awkward. Our hero says, I'm leaving. It no longer makes sense to stay here. The man asks, what do you plan to do? The protagonist replies, it's obvious. I'll do as before and handle everything alone. Woik says, your leader wouldn't be able to do anything with the body he has now. And the MC says, I've already done it once, and would do it again. But before leaving, the protagonist says, there's one more thing I have to say. Then he asks, where is my sword? It would be complicated to do everything alone without it. Woik replies, it's in storage, and because it's a valuable item, it can't be taken out. The MC asks, can I get my items? The director answers, the person in charge there is Suktu. The protagonist is glad his companion got that position. That's perfect, he thinks, because he always obeyed orders and was very loyal. Woik adds, Suktu was one of the people who would be the angriest about your return. The MC sighs, nothing is really working out. The man replies, there's still an alternative. Saktu's granddaughter studies at the school. I've heard the chairman loves his granddaughter very much and can't say no to her. Our boy asks, he really has a granddaughter. Then he asks, should I really get close to her to solve these problems? The man says it would be easier that way. Our hero considers it. It would be better to do that, he says, then asks, what's her name? The director responds, her name is Go Anshi. You probably met her in the collapsed dungeon near the hospital. Upon hearing this, the protagonist's mind starts racing. Joonwu says it could only be a joke. He asks, is the girl really Saktu's granddaughter? The man replies, that's exactly the case. Is there a problem? The MC says, I was very angry after seeing the subjugation on the street. I ended up fighting with her. Upon hearing this, the director is surprised. Woik asks, did your friend hurt anyone? The MC says, obviously I wouldn't do that. I just said a few things because I was angry and then left. He then thinks about what he said, how she defeated the monster, and shouts, I have no idea what to do. At this moment, our hero places his hands in front of Woik. Seeing that, Woik is confused and wonders what his friend is planning. He asks, do you need something? Joonwu says, I want the academy enrollment form. Hearing this, the man is very surprised. Is that really true? He asks. The protagonist tells his friend, just give it to me. My weapon is in someone else's hands. Get back. I'll approach Septu's granddaughter. Woik says that's not the problem. You're too old. Upon hearing that, the protagonist asks, what do you mean by that? The man asks, do you really intend to enroll at your age? And hearing that, the protagonist is shocked. The director says a lot of things to our hero. Upon hearing them, our boy gets irritated. He says he's not there to make friends and only wants to recover his weapon. Upon hearing this, Woik sides. He says their leader is still the same. The protagonist responds, saying that's obvious, and that's why he was eliminated before everyone else. In the next moment, the director hands the admission card to our hero. He says the MC shouldn't be too hard on the kids. The MC says he wouldn't because he's not that kind of person. Woik says our hero shouldn't hurt them because they're young. The protagonist replies, I'll decide that in the moment. The man says he's not joking because those kids are very weak. The MC yells, I already got it. The next day, inside the academy, someone was looking for their classroom. That person was the protagonist, and he was thinking that now that he was joining a class, he felt nervous. He tells himself that he shouldn't draw too much attention while searching for Go Unch. However, someone asks the protagonist what he's doing standing in front of the classroom. That person is a girl, and she says, if you're not going to enter, move away from the door. You're in the way. The MC apologizes and says he's already going in, but for some unknown reason, the girl moves closer to the protagonist's face. Seeing his discomfort, she asks, by any chance, are you the dog from yesterday? The protagonist is confused. Entering the room, she adds, I didn't expect the transfer student to be someone like you, but it doesn't matter much. It has nothing to do with me. Though the MC asks why she's calling him a dog, she doesn't answer. The protagonist is even more confused. She said that and then left. He thinks to himself, kids nowadays are really more complicated to deal with. After entering the classroom, he feels many eyes on him. It's because all the students are staring at him. A group of boys is talking among themselves, wondering if the person who entered the room is the same dog from the day before. Even some girls are saying the same thing about the protagonist. Realizing this, the MC asked himself, what's going on? It's my first day of school and everyone is staring at me. But he decides it's better to ignore it. He tells himself, I thought this academy would be different. Nobody else had my items. Our hero is still looking for a place to sit. But he was surprised by something. The reason was that there was a bouquet of flowers on his desk with a message from Wook congratulating the NC. Seeing this, he felt a bit confused and wondered if they really gave these out when students arrived. Sitting down, he muttered, just a waste of money. In the next moment, he was slightly startled by a loud noise. Someone was shouting and criticizing their teacher. This person was a boy, complaining that his teacher had forced him to go to school. When the boy entered the classroom, all the students immediately became afraid. Our hero thought to himself, kids really haven't changed. They still act like they're the best. When the boy noticed the hero, he was surprised. Then he smiled, thinking a new friend had arrived. He began to approach, saying, I can't believe you're in my class. The dog from yesterday showed up in my room, and I didn't expect you to be here after messing with Go and talking badly about hunters. The hero was taken aback and asked, how do you know all this? The boy grinned and replied, your video is everywhere. The protagonist, still confused, thought, I don't know anything about that. In giving a slap to the protagonist, the boy says, I couldn't believe that even after saying those things, I managed to get into the academy. He adds the MC was crazy. He was only an E rank and caused trouble with unts, but the protagonist was starting to get annoyed. The boy puts his hand in front of our hero and says, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Juch, and you probably already know me. The protagonist had an irritated expression as he remembered Wook saying his friend should endure the insult. Then in the next moment, our boy also extends his hand and says his own name. After hearing this, Juch starts laughing and says, your parents must have been fools to give you the name of a famous hunter. Our MC laughs on the outside, but he tells himself he has to hold back and not hit that kid. The boy asks, what was it like to see Go Uni up close? Then he says her figure was amazing and her face was decent for a girl her age. He starts laughing again and says, even though she's a director's granddaughter, she can't be that arrogant. If it weren't for those problems and that determined look, she'd be his type. However, someone said that Juch shouldn't go too far. Upon hearing this, both the protagonist and the boy were surprised. This person was the girl from before. The boy asked, why are you talking about those things again? The girl replied, Juch should look in the mirror before commenting on someone else's appearance. After hearing this, he asked, have you lost your mind? I let it slide before, but now you've gone too far. But the girl said, the two of you were in class E, so you were trash. The boy retorted, I'm not on the same level as you. I used to be in class B. She shrugged. It doesn't matter. You don't know how to use your abilities. And for you to still be in school, she continued, your father's connections must be incredible. If not for that, you already have been expelled. Juch's anger flared at this. He moved toward the girl as if to hit her. Noticing this, she closed her eyes in fear. But for some reason, the boy was very surprised. The reason was that he was on the floor. After seeing this, all the students were shocked, wondering how our hero had the courage to do that. Juch asked, is Joonwu crazy for doing that? However, our big guy wore an indifferent expression as he looked at the boy. Juch asked if the protagonist really did that. Our hero responds, saying that if the boy wants, he can do it again. But Juch just gets up and asks, does the NC really want trouble on his first day of school? Then he shouts, I'll have to be the one to put you in your place so you'll understand the hierarchy around here. However, our protagonist doesn't care and just laughs. With an irritated expression, the MC asks, have you ever been in a critical situation to be talking like that? The boy doesn't care about what the protagonist said and just advances toward him. But without any difficulty, the MC manages to dodge, thinking, this kid's punch was terrible. His movements were pathetic. Even a goblin could take him down. Before they could continue the fight, someone enters the room and asks what her students are doing. Juch gets annoyed. Of course, the teacher had to show up right at the moment of my fight. As he leaves, he says, I'll find that mean Joonwu later. We'll settle this then, and tells the protagonist, we should be behind the school. We're going to do something fun. A few hours later, Wook has an irritated expression. He asks, how is it that you've already gotten into trouble on your first day of school? And upon hearing that, the protagonist said he had been holding back a lot. Wook says that he had already cleaned up the mess the MC made, but he didn't know what Juch would do. And upon hearing that, Joonwu asks what his friend meant. The man explains that the boy the MC hit earlier was the son of the minister of the subjugation department, and that the boy did whatever he wanted. Since his father was an influential person, he never had any problems. Our hero says he now understands how that kid ended up that way. The director tells the protagonist that he should be more careful. If the MC tried to fight Juch again, there would be nothing he could do. To which the protagonist replies that he understood and would handle it in his own way. Outside the office, our hero sighs. At that moment, the girl from earlier asks why he acted that way, startling the protagonist. She asks if the MC didn't know who he had messed with, but he says he doesn't care since he never liked ill-mannered kids. Then he asks why she was trying to fight the boy, as Juch was only talking about ants. But in the next moment, he is surprised. He thinks that the girl standing before him looks very similar to the person he had seen during the subjugation. Looking at a badge on her shirt, he sees the name Goen. He then asks, "Are you Unchi's younger sister?" She responds, "I am." The MC thinks this is great, as he could use this girl. But at the next moment, she says, "I'm not really Uni's younger sister. We had different mothers. I wasn't considered my father's daughter, and I wasn't acknowledged as part of the family." After hearing that, our hero feels awkward. He asks, "Do you talk to your grandfather?" She replies, "We have a great relationship. He's the one who removed me from the family registry." Upon hearing this, all of the MC's hopes are completely crushed. The girl apologizes. "Since I'm not part of their family, you wouldn't get any compensation for helping me. And since you're a new student, you should find someone to rely on instead of being alone at the academy." She pauses, then adds, "I thought you were different from the others. But in reality, you're just like everyone else. You only care about status." The MC replies, "You're not any different either. You judge me just because I'm a special admission student." Discussing family history and special admissions is ridiculous, especially for kids. However, the girl tells the protagonist, "Wait, and he will understand what it really means to be a special student at the academy." But he doesn't care about any of that and just keeps walking. After seeing that, the girl feels a bit embarrassed as she thinks about what just happened. Elsewhere, the MC is telling himself that he thought it would be easy, but now he will have to find another way to get close to Unts. And at that moment, someone appears behind our hero. This person asks, "Is your name Joonwu? Are you a special student from Class E?" Our protagonist is surprised and wonders who this person is. He just asks, "What do you want from me?" Some boys were watching the protagonist laughing at him, and more people started arriving after the man appeared. Suddenly, our boy found himself surrounded by 5 people in the school hallway. The man tells the MC, "Follow us, or we'll humiliate you in front of everyone." Realizing the situation he's in, the protagonist thinks he's starting to get a headache. Inside a warehouse located within the school, our hero follows the boys who had appeared earlier. The MC wonders if this is their hideout, as the smell in there is terrible. Someone says, "Our friend has finally arrived." That person is Juice Sack. And he said he would ask something before the 6 of them created unforgettable memories. He questioned why a special student had tried to fight him, as it didn't make sense and even felt like a dream. Our big guy asked why they always called him a special student and whether that was an important title. After hearing this, Juch was surprised. He said that someone who got in through connections dared to speak in front of him as if they were someone important. He added that if he weren't being punished, he would teach the MC a lesson himself, but the protagonist should be grateful because his friends were kind. Then he shouted that his companions could begin their work. After hearing this, one of the boys tried to kick the protagonist, but he easily dodged. Our hero was surprised since the boy who tried to hit him fell to the ground on his own. Juicio laughed and said the protagonist was good at dodging. However, more people started running toward the MC, saying they would teach him a lesson. With no difficulty, our hero dodged an attack from one of the boys. He kept avoiding all the attacks while asking if the teachers didn't teach basic combat skills. The man from earlier was running towards the protagonist while shouting for him to shut up. But this time, our big guy didn't dodge and landed a knee strike to the face of the extra. He thought that this person was really ridiculous since he couldn't even do basic things. After receiving the attack from our hero, a lot of red liquid started pouring from the boy's nose. Then he collapsed on the ground, leaving all the... And another person replied that no one wanted to get dragged into this mess. Go in, she said, the protagonist deserves to go through this since he acted as if he was better than everyone else. However, she suddenly recalled everything he had said about her. The next moment, she stopped walking. Then she started running somewhere. Inside the warehouse, our hero was looking at the 3 boys who had brought him there. Chuch asked, "Are your friends just playing around? You only need to charge forward and hit the NC." However, the boys were afraid since he had defeated the strongest among them with a single strike. "My classmates are scared for no reason," our hero said. "I haven't done anything special." And our big guy commented that their mentality and skills were similar to a child. After hearing this, Juch was shaken to his core. Looking at his friends, he said, the boy should use his ability to fight our hero. One of them replied, "If we use our techniques, we'll get caught and be expelled from the academy." But Juch said, "We just have to make sure we aren't caught." After hearing this, the boys started preparing to attack again. They had bracelets on their wrists. The protagonist thought that they were using the same item as Go Ench, and that carrying swords was probably more difficult. However, the boys didn't have the courage to attack our big guy and remained still. After seeing this, Juch jumped from where he was. He called his companions cowards and, showing a bracelet, activated something that granted him permission to use his abilities. One of the boys said that if his friend got caught using that, he would be punished, but Juch told him to shut up. Removing an item, the system stated that the user's skill rank was D and that he could use his abilities from that moment on. Our hero watched the scene with an expressionless look. The window displayed that a spear had been given to the owner. Juch declared that he would make our hero beg for forgiveness and see how long he would last. The protagonist called the boy a child and asked if he even knew how to use abilities. A bystander asked if the protagonist was an idiot since he was already using a weapon. Grabbing a broom, the MC asked if Juch really thought summoning an item was an ability. He said the bystander was truly someone who knew nothing. In the next moment, our big guy pointed his broom in Juch's direction. With an angry expression, he asked how that kid dared to use an ability on another person outside a dungeon. In the academy's office, someone was telling their colleague that they had heard one of her students who had enrolled today had already gotten into trouble. And he says the student was bold since he had tried to fight Juch, who was from Class B, the man added. It's strange for a special student to be placed in Class E. That means he has no talent as a hunter. Upon hearing this, the woman responded, that's not true. The man was confused. But how could he be in Class E? She explained the reason he was placed there is because he didn't take the aptitude test. At this, the man was even more puzzled. But those who skip that test usually have a combat level so high it can't be measured. He frowned. Was he really excluded from the evaluation? Up until that point, the only student to receive such a classification was Go. He asked, are the two on the same level? The man shook his head. Someone with that kind of talent wouldn't be sent to the lowest class. The woman sighed. The director ordered the MC to be placed in Class E so he wouldn't stand out. That's strange, the man remarked. Hunters usually want to stand out. I don't know the details, she said. Before she could continue speaking, someone suddenly yelled out her name. The person calling her was Goen, and the woman asked what had happened. Our heroine replied that the MC was in trouble. Back to our battle. The protagonist's broom and Juch's spear clashed against each other. The boy had an irritated expression as he was only managing to keep up with the protagonist. Our hero effortlessly defended himself from all of Juch's attacks, using only his broom. The bystander wondered what was going on. After all, using his spear, Juch should have been able to face someone of barren level. Yet the protagonist was blocking every single one of his attacks, and the broom had broken. Frustrated, Juch shouted, demanding to know why he wasn't winning against an E rank. He tried to strike our hero again, who still had an indifferent expression on his face. Juch kept cursing at the protagonist while desperately trying to land a hit. However, Joonwu stated, a weapon skill isn't something to be used carelessly. The bystander told the protagonist to shut up, saying he was just a special admissions student. The MC explained that the characteristics of an ability were defined by the weapon's core. Effortlessly dodging the attacks, he asked, what kind of core juice did you think your weapon had? And upon hearing that, Juch angrily tells our hero, go to hell. The spear's core was a gift from his father, and that was how he got accepted into the academy. After graduation, it was almost guaranteed that he would become a hunter. If he performed well, he could even join the student council. But now he was struggling against a special student who was ranked E. Our hero lands a hit on the bystander's hand with his broom. The system announces that the user has lost his weapon and must retrieve it immediately, leaving the boy confused. The reason for this confusion was that the protagonist was now holding Gusto's spear. He tells the kid in front of him, pay close attention and learn how a real hunter wields a weapon. But suddenly, everything inside the building went dark. The boys were confused, wondering what was happening. One of them said it felt like it had turned into nighttime. However, things slowly returned to normal, becoming bright again. One of the bystanders tells his friend, look beneath your feet. Then all of them were shocked as they saw their own shadows emerging from their bodies. The man who had just taken a hit from our hero stood there, completely bewildered, thinking that something had been taken from him, searching for the shadows since they had all disappeared. Our hero was surrounded by a dark aura, his expression one of fear. The extra thought to himself, this has to be a lie. He wondered if it was the same core from his weapon that had caused this. The reason for his confusion was that our big guy was laughing wickedly as a large amount of corrupted aura flowed from his body. The extra tried to back away from the protagonist, desperate to escape, but he had already completely soiled himself in this situation. As our hero pointed the spear at his neck, Juch begged to be spared, his expression ruthless. Our hero was preparing to attack, and in the next moment, he thrust the spear toward the boy. After seeing this, the extra began crying, trying to flee. However, the system deactivated the weapon because a minute had passed, causing the spear to start disappearing. Joonwu said, this is probably enough, while Juch lay unconscious. Our big guy began kicking the boy's body, trying to wake him up. He shouted at the extra to wake up already. Seeing this, the boy started to open his eyes, but the moment he saw the MC, he screamed in fear. The protagonist said, "I haven't done anything, so get up." The extra struggled to stand, still looking at the protagonist in fear. Our hero called Juch a child, and with a peculiar expression, he said that the boy should answer his question. The MC said that weapons and abilities existed to capture monsters and asked if using them outside the dungeon would be dangerous, but Juicy remained silent and didn't answer. However, our big guy insisted that he wanted a response. In the next moment, the extra said that he agreed and admitted it was very dangerous. The protagonist warned, "If I ever see you using that in front of me again, there will be a punishment." Then, looking at the boy who had surrounded him, the protagonist Ains told him to come forward. He said, "You should land a few more punches on me." This left the man confused. Joonwu replied that he wanted to take the strongest punch and asked, "Do you want people to laugh at you? You took on a special student and still ended up beaten." The boy thanked him but asked for the reason. The MC said, "I don't want my identity to be discovered." The extra asked, "Can you really do that?" Joonwu replied, "It has to be the strongest punch. If it doesn't hurt, everyone here will get beaten." After hearing this, the man prepared to land an attack on our hero. And the moment he punched the protagonist's face, the teachers entered the warehouse. Seeing what had happened, a woman said that there was red liquid from the MC spilled on the ground. Humans said that what they had done had crossed the line since the boy had been transferred that same day. But the extra said that the red liquid on the floor was his. The teacher said that the student should go to the teacher's office. The woman told going to take our big guy to the infirmary, and the girl said she would do it. A few minutes later, the protagonist was walking while saying that the body was much weaker than he had imagined. Our hero girl looked at the girl and asked what she was doing since he was supposed to go to the infirmary, but she didn't say anything and just remained silent. Then the MC said that she didn't need to worry because he would handle it himself. Ain asked who the protagonist really was. He replied that he was just a normal student who got what he deserved. And the girl said that he should stop pretending since she had seen everything. A few minutes earlier, the teacher had told her student to go check behind the academy. When she was looking for our hero alone, she heard several people speaking loudly, so she went to check what it was. She had been scared because she saw what our big guy had done to the extras. An asked why the MC was in Class E when he could be in the highest one. The protagonist replied that it had nothing to do with her, as he didn't want anyone's attention. She should forget everything that had happened. An agreed, saying that the MC was right and that she was exactly like him. Hearing this, the protagonist was confused. She admitted that she had judged him just because he was a special student and had even despised him. Then the girl apologized and the hero said it was fine. He just wanted to go to the infirmary. But An said she didn't want to bring it up yet. She asked him to help her because she wanted to join the student council. The protagonist was surprised and asked, "What? Can you repeat that?" An explained that to get into the council, she would need a sponsor. The MC asked if they would be taking advantage of that person. An replied, "That's exactly the case. That's why no one wanted to be my sponsor." And just as she was about to ask the protagonist for help, he refused, saying he was too busy. An quickly added, "I wouldn't ask for help for free. If there's something you want, I can do it for you." But the MC said, "What I want, you won't be able to do." She kept offering him many things, but the protagonist wasn't convinced, and he rejects all of them. But then she says she could introduce him to Uns. Upon hearing this, the MC asks, "Is that true?" Our hero asks how that would be possible, considering she had been expelled from her home. But the girl says that's not it. She then makes a funny expression while thinking about what to say. With a smile, Ain says that since her sister was a member of the student council, they would be able to talk if she managed to get in. The MC reacts strangely, and he tells the girl to forget about it, since he would handle it on his own. However, at that very moment, he starts feeling dizzy all over his body, collapsing to the ground. The girl asks, "What's wrong with you?" The protagonist says, "I've been asking for a long time to be taken to the infirmary." Elsewhere, an emergency meeting was taking place at the Hunter Academy. A teacher says, "This is the second time Juch could use his ability." Another person comments, "This is grounds for expulsion." A woman agrees, saying, "This time, we can't just let it slide." The previous teacher nods, saying he had witnessed it with his own eyes. A man asks, "What is the academy director's opinion on this matter?" Woik looks at the teacher. "Who brought a Yan?" He asked if it was true that Gusto and his friends had assaulted the protagonist. She confirmed, saying she had witnessed it herself. He asked again, wanting to be sure she really saw the attack, and she repeated her answer. The director chuckled unexpectedly and thanked the protagonist in a joking tone for enduring such a situation, leaving the teacher puzzled. However, he then firmly stated that the use of powers in such a manner was strictly prohibited, and since similar incidents had happened before, there would be consequences. The director announced that, according to the Academy's rules, Jude should face expulsion until someone interrupted. They asked for a moment to speak, and Woik allowed it. The person who spoke up did so confidently, arguing that expulsion might be too severe for this situation. Woik asked why they thought so, and the person replied that such behavior was common for teenagers and should be treated with understanding. The teacher strongly disagrees, shouting that this wasn't a simple mistake. Someone could have been seriously hurt. Still, the speaker insisted that Juch had great potential and could become a valuable asset to the Academy. He then asked, would you be okay knowing you ended a promising future over one bad decision? This caused Yubin to hesitate. The speaker admitted that Juch was clearly in the wrong and that his actions were serious, but still argued that permanent expulsion was too harsh a punishment, and that a 1-week suspension would be enough for the boy to learn from his mistakes. Woik says, I understand what Jan means, and we will decide Juch's punishment later. Then he declares, we've discussed enough. We'll end the meeting now. All the teachers start leaving the room, the second biggest go of the story. The shameless man smirks while looking at his phone. At the next moment, he's making a call. The person on the other end is the minister and Juch's father. Juven tells him the punishment will be just a suspension, and currently, the boy has the best chance of getting into the student council. With a sinister tone, he adds, I will teach the MC a lesson, and with the end-of-month evaluation coming up, I'll have no trouble doing it. The protagonist thinks it's already been 3 days since I started school, yet I still haven't seen Unch. He looks around at his classmates thinking this class is full of trash with no talent to become hunters. The lessons haven't taught anything important. Either way, there's nothing for him to stand out in at the moment. But before he can finish his thoughts, someone smacks him on the head. Now we are at the scene we saw at the beginning of the story, where they were bullying the protagonist. They said the same things as before, and these people were the same ones who had been beaten in the warehouse. Our big guy thought that to others he was just someone who had become an errand boy, but the reality was completely different. The student who had punched the protagonist said that the MC was hopeless and should follow him to learn a lesson. Then the former extras started leaving the classroom. In the school hallway, the protagonist was following the boys. The moment he spoke a word, the two of them flinched in surprise. Our hero said that the slap they gave to his head had hurt. After hearing this, the 3 boys apologized. The MC said that they were taking out their frustration on him. Upon hearing this, the man said that it wasn't like that at all, and that he had only done it because Joonwu said it should be as real as possible. The protagonist asked if they had done what he asked, but the man said that it was difficult for first-year students to get close to the student council. After hearing this, the protagonist asked if they hadn't found out anything. The man said they had discovered a few things. He said that some people mentioned that Uni almost never went to school. Upon hearing this, the MC asked if that was all. The boy said that she didn't have many friends and that the only person close to her was a fellow student council member named Zhang Yan. The MC thought that this was the only useful piece of information and asked where this person was. The extra replied that Zhang Yan also barely ever came to school, and upon hearing this, the protagonist became angry. He told them to get out of his sight. After hearing this, the boys apologized and promised to bring useful information next time. The protagonist was starting to get a headache when he felt someone behind him. That person was a girl, and she said that this wouldn't work. After seeing her, he asked, are you following me? The girl replied, Zhang Yan is an official member of the student council, which means he isn't easy to meet. The MC asked, why is it so hard to find these people when the student council isn't a big deal? However, she said, it's very important because only the best students are in it. The protagonist scoffed, they're just kids. Everyone there is a student. A explained, if someone becomes a member of the council, they automatically become a hunter and can participate in real missions. And since all the council members' parents are influential, the teachers respect them. And even in school, they had absolute authority. She said they were on a higher level. And the way the MC was going about it, he wouldn't even find a shadow of Goantz. Joonwu asked if there was another way to find her. The girl was about to suggest that the protagonist join the student council, but he immediately refused. Upon hearing this, the girl was confused and asked why he kept refusing. Our hero said that Ain had mentioned that only people with talent could stand out, but she didn't have any. The girl said that he just needed to teach her because she would work hard, and the protagonist started laughing. He said that if she tried to learn things from him, she would experience immense pain. The two of them fell silent after our big guy's remark. Then he said that he didn't know why Ain wanted to join the council and told her not to worry about things she wasn't capable of. However, the girl said she didn't care about any of that, and hearing this, Joonwu was surprised. She continued, saying that if she couldn't get into the council, she would rather go to another world and begged our hero to teach her. Then she said that she wanted to learn everything related to subjugation, and that she would dedicate herself to training no matter what. Joonwu started walking away, saying that the break was over. The girl replied that the protagonist should give her an answer. Our big guy had a smile on his face as he thought that she had a lot of courage. It had been a long time since he had seen such determination in someone. Because of that, she might become useful in the future. Elsewhere, someone was congratulating their students. That person was our favorite teacher, who asked if they were already aware of the monthly evaluation. For that reason, she continued, the students should put effort into the exam, as their scores had been bad last month. As she was about to continue speaking, someone arrived, apologizing for interrupting the class. That person was the shameless teacher, and he said he was there to announce changes to the upcoming monthly exam. The man stated that the test for first-year students would be a practical activity inside a dungeon. Upon hearing this, all the students were confused. Our heroine wondered if this was really happening, and the protagonist didn't look happy at all. After hearing this, the teacher said that it couldn't be true, but the shameless man told her not to raise her voice in front of her students. Euban argued that a practical exam was excessive. The shameless man asked if she was implying that Class E wouldn't be able to complete it. She couldn't respond. The man said it didn't matter since the decision had already been made. He added that excluding students from education was considered discriminatory. Then he asked how long they planned to stay out of the academy's main events. Students needed to complete the basic requirements to become hunters. The MC thought this was ridiculous because this class knew nothing. They were practically children. He was sure something was wrong as no teacher would willingly put kids in a dungeon. The shameless man stated that if they didn't want to take the exam, they could simply give up and take remedial classes instead. Looking directly at the protagonist, the scumbag asked if the MC knew that withdrawing from the exam would lead to his expulsion from the school. As he walked away, the man said he would personally oversee the evaluation. The protagonist thought that they were definitely hiding something. Since that teacher wouldn't be able to do this alone, someone with influence had to be backing him. In the director's office, Woik confirmed that it was exactly as expected. The Minister of Civilization of Korea was behind it. The MC said he had been placed on a blacklist because of juice. The man apologized, saying he had tried his best to prevent it. However, since Mongjin was an important figure in the academy and had deep ties to its history, he couldn't do anything about it. The protagonist responded that he understood it was a difficult situation. The director continued explaining some things, but the protagonist cut him off, saying, "I've heard enough. I don't want to listen to any more complaints." Woi asked what his friend's plan was to escape this persecution. The NC replied, "Obviously, I'll take the exam. I still haven't seen Unch and can't afford to be expelled." Then, looking at the director, our hero asked, "Does my friend have any useful weapons?" The man answered that he had nothing. The MC said, "I can't enter a dungeon unarmed. Do you have anything to fight with?" But Woik insisted that he had nothing. "Items are too dangerous," he added. After hearing this, our hero was a bit surprised. Grabbing his friend's arm, he asked, "Have you finally grown the guts to lie to me?" The director denied lying. Then, looking at the ring on his friend's finger, the MC asked, "What's that item?" Upon hearing this, the second biggest G, who had been quietly observing, realized that his secret had been exposed. Since that was one of the rarest items, the Ring of Patelis, our hero and his friends started talking about it. The MC asked, "Woi, do you still have it?" "It's been 50 years. The man replied, "I only started using it after my leader was taken down." He then recalled the past when the protagonist had saved him and brought him into his team, even though he was a nobody back then. Our hero asked, "What are you doing now?" Then, grabbing the ring from his hand, he declared, "I'll be using it." The protagonist smiled as he held the item, something he had used many years ago before he was eliminated. Woik asked, "Are you sure it's okay to use it? That would mean you're not really an E rank anymore." The MC responded, "Since it's a dungeon meant for kids, it shouldn't be a big deal." Just before the protagonist left the director's office, the man said, "I still have something to tell you." Our hero asked, "What is it?" Woik started speaking, but before he could finish, Joonwu shut the door and walked away. The man thought to himself, maybe I should just step down as the academy's president. In the hallway, the shameless teacher was walking. The next moment, he knocked on the door of the special department of the Hunter Academy. Upon opening the door, he was a little surprised by what he saw. The reason for that was because our main heroine was in the room. He asked Ganch, "Why have you come to school for the first time?" Upon hearing this, the girl questioned, "Why are you barging into my room?" The man became irritated and said, "The teachers can come if they want." He added, "You shouldn't be arrogant just because you're a council member." However, after he said that, our heroine didn't say anything, and after realizing this, the shameless man felt awkward. Thinking that he should endure this for now, since he was at the academy, he mentioned, there will be a first-year evaluation. We've decided to assign someone from the student council as the supervisor. This time, it'll be a practical exam. The girl asked, "Are you seriously saying that the first-year students will have a practical exam?" He confirmed, asking, "Are you interested in the event?" However, she said, "I can't do it." The man asked, could Che ask the other members? She replied, "My companions can't do it either." The shameless man questioned, "Are you saying we should postpone the practical exam?" She answered, "Yes, if it can't be held without the student council members. It would be better to leave it for another year, especially since there was no advantage for them," she said, adding that if they paid her, she might consider it. The man shouted, asking, "Do you think you're superior just because you're the council member?" Juin responded, "I supported you in becoming someone at the school. Do you think you achieved it all on your own?" Hearing this, the girl told him, "Don't take your frustration out on me. It was my grandfather who judged you, not me. I had nothing to do with it." She paused, then added, "You should also treat the council members better." Jun was left at a loss for words. He then asked, "Where did you hear about my judgment?" But before she could respond, someone entered the room. The person who walked in greeted, "It's great to see you again, teacher. Is there anything important for us to discuss?" The man replied, "I need someone from the council to evaluate the exams." The boy asked, "Has Cha agreed?" The man responded, "She hasn't." The student said, "If she can't do it, I will, since I don't have anything important going on." Juin asked, "Can't you really help?" The boy replied, "Obviously. I'm also a student council member." Juin thought for a moment. The person in front of him seemed a bit troublesome, and he wondered if he should give him the task. However, in the next moment, the man granted the student permission and told him to sign the document and send it to his teacher. Go Yuni was observing the situation while the boy had a suspicious smile on his face. She asked, "What will you do with the subjugation schedule?" He said, "I'll drop it. I'm not as famous as you, so no one will care." Kay asked why, adding, "I don't understand why you'd help Professor Cha when you don't like him." The boy replied, "I'm taking this job to keep an eye on the professor. I don't want the past accident to happen again. I also want to know the test results." Ivor, the boy from the hospital scene, entered the school as a special student in the first year. Jay was confused. She thought the MC seemed to know a lot about subjugations. She told herself, "I thought he was already a student." The boy explained, "I was curious, so I observed the protagonist. On his first day, he defeated Juch's group. He also didn't participate in the evaluation, just like you." Then he asked, "Don't you want to know what the protagonist is like?" Elsewhere, at the Academy's training grounds, our hero was looking at some people. He thought to himself that some from classes C and D were missing. The B-rank students were participating and seemed very eager to show off their skills to the girls. However, in the MC's class, only he and one other person were participating. Someone asked the protagonist if only the two of them were going into the dungeon. That person was Ayun, who was preparing while saying that it was good that only the two of them were going to fight because they wouldn't have to wait for their turn. Our hero asked what she was doing there. The girl said it was obvious since she was taking the test. Ain said that the MC didn't need to worry because she wouldn't get in the way. But Joonwu replied that a dungeon wouldn't be easy just because the level was low. Our hero told her to stop while he was still being kind and said that this test was designed to make Class E give up from the start. However, Ain didn't care about what the protagonist said. She insisted that she had already told him she would do anything to get into the student council. Since anyone who wanted to join the council couldn't fail the exam, she added. Just as the MC was about to say something, someone interrupted, telling the students to pay attention. That person was the shameless teacher who said that the test wasn't dangerous, but since it was a school exam, they shouldn't let their guard down. He continued, saying that the test would take place inside a low-grade dungeon and that each group could have up to 8 participants. After discussing among themselves, the exam would begin with Class A, while the rest would wait for their turn. As someone entered the room, the teacher announced everyone should already know him, as he is a member of the student council. That person was the boy from before who introduced himself as Kim Jong-yen. Hearing this, our hero was surprised and wondered if he had seen this person before. He recognized that name from somewhere. Looking at the protagonist, the shamed teacher mentioned, since there are only 2 students in Class E, Joonwu and Ann will be moved to Class D. The man from earlier greeted the MC. The boys who had been beaten up by the protagonist looked uneasy, pretending to act tough in front of him. Our heroine pointed out, those boys can't even fake confidence. It's too obvious they're putting on an act. Other students were grumbling, saying they were unlucky to be placed on the same team as a special admissions student. One boy asked, why do we have to be in the same group as a special student? A girl complained, we'll have to complete the mission with fewer members. One of the boys who had been beaten by the MC apologized. Just as he was about to say something else, the protagonist cut him off, saying it wasn't a big deal. In the next moment, he asked for information about the dungeon. Someone replied that they had managed to gather some. A boy bowed to the protagonist and handed him a tablet, saying, take a look at the details. Seeing this, everyone was confused. Someone was actually bowing in front of the biggest loser in the school. Then, in the next moment, the same boy scoffed, saying, our hero is useless. He couldn't gather any information himself and had to rely on others. A few hours later, in front of the cave, Jumpman asked if the last team was ready to enter. Hen stated that his freshmen should be able to discover routes and methods to complete the mission. The teacher explained that the test would end once the participants defeated the dungeon boss inside. With a peculiar smile, he asked, "Do any of you want to know anything else about the exam?" Seeing this, the protagonist remained silent, carefully observing what the shameless man was doing. In the next moment, Gigantiana announced that the final team could begin, and so the protagonist team entered the dungeon. Our hero walked through the dungeon, thinking that this place was pretty ordinary. It had typical cave-type monsters. But suddenly, the MC heard a loud noise and was surprised. The reason was that a massive swarm of rat-like creatures was charging toward the students. Seeing this, they screamed, saying there were too many monsters and that they needed to prepare for battle. The system announced that the students were now authorized to use their abilities. Joonwu had a different expression on his face as he muttered to himself. He wanted to see what the students' abilities were like. One of the boys launched a gust of wind. The second student activated his sniper-style combat ability. The last boy used a skill that put him into a berserk state. They were managing to hold off the rat attack. One of the students fired air bullets at the creatures. Thanks to this, they barely managed to defend themselves from the monsters' attacks. The MC thought that he had already expected this. They could barely use their abilities and didn't even understand how they worked. Even the other students were the same. They were just swinging their swords aimlessly. Among all of them, there was only one person who managed to stand out. That person was our heroine, who was using a fire-based skill. In the next moment, flames engulfed the monsters. Immediately after, they began shrieking as they were incinerated. The MC noted that An knew how to use her strength. Despite Class E not having proper lessons, she had managed to learn her skills on her own. He admitted that for a child she could fight well, but it didn't really matter since she was still just a beginner. The other students were exhausted, wondering if this was really a low-level dungeon, since the monsters just kept coming, right after saying that a rat ran toward one of the boys. But in the next moment, our big guy activated the Patelis ring. The system announced that the user was about to use a skill. The protagonist was preparing to flick a stone, and right after that, the monster from before was completely obliterated by our hero. It flew straight into a wall. Seeing this, the boy was confused. The MC told the boy to be more careful and not to make random attacks. But after hearing that, the bastard told our hero to shut up. The girl then said that the MC just wanted to earn points faster. After that, our big guy wondered if they were idiots since they couldn't even understand the situation they were in. One of the boys asked, did Joonwu really manage to do that? And the redhead commented that the dungeon was harder than he had expected. The MC sighed, thinking that they were incredibly weak, and didn't even realize they had almost been wiped out. It would be impossible to continue since they were already exhausted, and it hadn't even been 5 minutes since they entered the dungeon. Because of that, the only person who could be useful was Goen, but it didn't change anything since he couldn't rely on her help. He wanted to leave everyone behind, but he couldn't. There were people watching, and something felt off about the dungeon. Our hero looked at the shameless guy and asked, he can think the dungeon was strange. There were more monsters than there should be, and they were only at the entrance of the dungeon. There could be something wrong. It would be better to stop the hunt and assess the situation. Jumpin asked if the MC was good for anything and told him to stop interrupting. As he walked away, he said that the MC was too arrogant. He shouldn't overstep his bounds as he was the supervisor and would be the one to decide what to do. The protagonist shouted, if we continue like this, there will be an accident. And as he was about to say more, the bastard interrupted Joonwu, telling the students to pay attention. He said that if any students were tired and didn't want to continue the exam, they could leave. However, none of the students said anything and were awkwardly silent in response to the man's question. The other shameless ones also remained quiet. Juman said that if the protagonist was tired, he should quit alone and not drag the other students down with him. And if he caused more trouble, he would be disqualified from the exam immediately. But then someone placed a hand on our big guy's shoulder and told him not to worry. That person was Jong Yun. He said that if the dungeon became dangerous, he would step in. As he walked away from the protagonist, he added that even if he didn't seem strong, he was a member of the student council. Our hero shouldn't worry. Joonwu kept watching the boy as he left, thinking about what was happening. A few minutes later, the extras seemed happy as one of them said they had finally reached the boss room of the dungeon. But suddenly, they stopped celebrating and fell silent. Noticing this, our hero sighed again, thinking that they were already scared before even seeing the dungeon boss. He walked toward the door, saying that he would open the boss room. Ain said that they should open it together, when the MC tried to say that he could do it alone. She didn't care and insisted that she would open it with him. She said that the protagonist was probably laughing inside, thinking that everyone was scared, and stated that she wasn't. Seeing this, our hero looked to the side, trying to play it off. In the next moment, the two of them opened the gates to the dungeon boss's room. But right after looking inside, the protagonist was shocked by what he saw. The reason was that there was a giant monster lying on the ground with red liquid oozing from its head. The creature had already been taken down, and there was a large amount of liquid spread across the floor. One of the boys asked, "Is the monster on the ground really the boss?" The woman was also surprised, as everyone wondered if it had already gone to another world. John was also confused as he asked, "What happened? I thought the dungeon hadn't been explored by anyone yet." Our heroine looked at the MC and asked, "Do you know anything?" Our hero said that there had been interference inside the dungeon. After saying that, he shouted, "Everyone should retreat immediately." After hearing this, the students were surprised. With fearful expressions, they asked, "Why should we run?" Then the protagonist said, "We need to leave as quickly as possible." Because an interference had occurred in the dungeon, chaos erupted. In the next moment, out of nowhere, a giant shadow covered Joonwu and our heroine. When the MC saw it for the first time, he felt true terror. After all, the creature was dozens of times larger than him. The students were utterly terrified and began running as soon as they saw the monster's massive size. A dungeon interference occurs when a dungeon boss is eliminated by an even stronger monster that somehow enters the area. This was the rarest event that could happen in a low-grade dungeon. Almost impossible. Our heroine had a terrified expression. Meanwhile, our hero was also shaking in his boots. The creature was now right in front of the protagonist. The system identified it as a three-tailed tiger. The MC thought this was a disaster. A green-ranked boss had appeared inside a purple-ranked dungeon. The students screamed while running, shouting that they needed to find the dungeon exit to escape. However, the creature ignored the protagonist and leaped toward the others instead. It landed, destroying everything in its surroundings. The teacher was extremely frightened while Hyan told his classmates to hive-mind him. The system then announced that the user's authorization had been granted, and rank 6 skills had been activated. He could now use his abilities. In the next moment, glowing lights began to appear inside the dungeon, emanating from the boy's arm. Zhang Yan's ability was Porcupine's Wrath. He called out to the MC, saying that he couldn't defeat a green-ranked enemy alone and asked if the protagonist would help him. Hearing this, our hero was confused. He wondered why the boy wanted his help. He apologized and admitted that he already knew about the protagonist's abilities since he managed to pass without taking the entrance exam. After hearing this, everyone was shocked. One of the students wondered if the MC was just like Cha. Our hero was baffled. A few days earlier, a system window had stated that the user's abilities couldn't be measured. Woik had already expected something like this and said that the MC had technically passed the exam. Our hero responded that he didn't want to stand out. The man explained that this was one of the few matters where he had very little authority. If the protagonist wanted to stay quiet, the teachers would likely ignore him and wouldn't care about the issue. But in the next moment, he added that when he said it was a matter he could handle freely, he meant that almost no one would pay attention to it. The protagonist muttered to himself that he shouldn't have done that. Back in the dungeon, the protagonist charged forward, saying he would do his best. Him thanked him and told our hero not to worry. Right after that, the monster prepared to attack the duo. For some reason, Han was confused by what was happening. Getting ready to block the attack, he spotted an opening. Then he fired several mana spikes toward the tiger. After the attack, the monster tried to defend itself from Ken's strikes, but the boy didn't give the creature any time to react and immediately launched another attack. He pierced 2 spikes into the monster's body. After being hit again, the creature went into a frenzy. One of the students commented that the abilities of a student council member were truly impressive, while a girl said that compared to them, they were just children. Looking at the MC, some students pointed out that he wasn't doing anything and was just standing around, while another person said that Cam was doing all the work. A student asked if Han was trying to give the MC special treatment, but the girl insisted that was impossible. However, the boy said he had been annoyed with our hero from the start, thinking that he couldn't let our hero walk away without any effort. He felt he needed to uncover something. The third biggest goat of the story kept pressing forward, looking for ways to attack the creature. He was confused, thinking that he had never had such a satisfying battle before. To him, being able to fight a green-ranked boss, this easily felt like someone was handing him the victory on a silver platter. Then he passed by the protagonist and grew even more puzzled. He wondered if our hero was the one making this happen, letting him take all the credit. But soon, Han stopped thinking about those things as the tiger attempted to strike him again. Our hero casually flicked a rock, which struck the monster's body. The tiger started to get dizzy. Our big guy was putting it to sleep. The boy finally understood. Every time the creature tried to get close, our hero used an ability to push it away, and he had already seen this in a manual. The MC was finding weak points to attack, but it was almost impossible to do so unless you knew where the monster would strike. The most impressive thing was that the protagonist was doing this without anyone noticing, making him wonder what his true identity was. However, it didn't matter much now since he had to defeat the tiger to lead the students to the exit. Right after that, he landed another attack on the monster's head. With that blow, the creature was completely obliterated by our second big guy. The boy stood, deep in thought, gazing at the now lifeless body of the tiger. Witnessing the battle, the other students were terrified. They believed that someone from the student council was truly incredible. They began saying that their superior was the best of all, and that they had already expected this from someone in the council. The shameless one laughed, thinking that he had believed the incident from 2 years ago would repeat. But now, it seemed like things would turn out fine. Since Joonwu had probably received an evaluation exemption without reason, this could be used as grounds to expel him from the academy. But the protagonist spoke up, telling everyone to wait because the monster was still alive. It would be dangerous to stay here, he said, so we all need to leave. Out of nowhere, someone shouted for the protagonist to pay attention. It was the guy from before, and he claimed that he knew our hero only said that to earn points. Then he jumped in front of the creature. The bastard declared that he wouldn't let Joonwu take advantage of this. He would land the final blow himself. Fortunately, in the next moment, the tiger opened its eyes and lunged at the student in the back row, someone the protagonist hoped would make it out safely. The protagonist couldn't help but think it was reckless of the boy to act like that. But to both the protagonist and the reader's dismay, wait, the second was skilled among them, stepped in front of the student to protect him. In the next moment, his arm was severely injured, leaving everyone shocked and questioning the harshness of the situation. The boy coughed up a lot of blood. The attacker, shocked by what had just happened, froze in place. All the students, along with the professor, were horrified by the sudden turn of events. The boy collapsed to the ground as everyone rushed to ask if he was okay. Then Jonan shouted that everyone needed to escape. The students hesitated, asking if he would be all right, but he insisted they focus on getting away safely. Our heroine was paralyzed with fear, unsure of how she could help, especially after seeing a powerful student council member taken down in a single blow. And at that very moment, the tiger appeared right in front of her. She tried to stay calm, remembering that the beast feared fire, one of her abilities. But when she attempted to use her power, nothing happened. Her fear was overwhelming. She realized she couldn't move. Her body was trembling too much. She was completely frozen. Then, just as the creature was about to strike, the system announced, "User has activated explosive flow." A split second later, a fist came crashing down on the creature. It was the protagonist, delivering a direct hit that sent the monster flying. Seeing this, the girl stood in shock, questioning if she had really just seen him knock the creature away with a single punch. The tiger soared through the air, landing far from where it had stood. In the next moment, the protagonist left the area. The extra from earlier was crying at the spot where our goat had fallen. To be honest, I'm not as mad at him now, since he doesn't seem like a bad person. But in the next moment, someone grabbed him by the collar. That person was our hero. He told the extra, "Stop fooling around and take Hen somewhere else if you don't want to end up in another world." The protagonist called the big guy and told him to help Han, while the rest should stay hidden. Our hero was preparing for battle, thinking that he had made a mistake. He shouldn't have stayed hidden. He could have ended this from the start. Now the creature was roaring in the protagonist's face. In the next moment, it tried to strike our hero, but without difficulty, the Go-8 dodged. After that, the tiger began pulling sharp objects from its body. It attacked the NC with something resembling a spear, but he managed to evade it while the system announced that weapon capacity had been activated. With flow activated, the protagonist landed another punch on the creature. This time, I think the monster is truly defeated because there's just no way. And I really believe it now because our hero is already activating another ability. Actually, it was the same skill, but now he unleashed multiple attacks at once. The bystanders were surprised since the protagonist was managing to defeat the tiger. Even our waifu was looking at her future husband. The shameless guy was also confused, wondering how the protagonist was beating the hell out of the tiger. He thought the MC had done nothing before and was now a completely different person. The guy got pissed, wondering if the protagonist had really passed without taking the exam. The way he was fighting, the protagonist seemed above the veterans and was even using an ancient weapon. Then he shouted, "It's very dangerous to use an ancient supernatural weapon." But our hero didn't care. He kept advancing, thinking it was obvious that he already knew that. The professor was probably talking about the penalty since every ancient weapon had one. The activation effects changed, and in some cases, it even eliminated the user. But the reason he kept using them was that they were incredibly strong. The bracelet was easy to use and had the highest power without a penalty. But still, all the user could do was use the abilities of the monster that served as its core. On the other hand, a supernatural weapon increased the monster's power and changed its form so the hunter could use it. Making it stronger, the MC was thinking that the new generation of hunters had grown weaker, And even if things were fine now, the monsters would only get stronger in the future. But in the next moment, the tiger appeared behind the protagonist out of nowhere. Our heroine said, "Your future husband should look behind you." The bastard tried to land an attack on our hero, but the Go-8 dodged it without any difficulty. The system announced that the user had activated the flow attack, and upon seeing this, the creature became frightened. The protagonist was spinning in midair, and right after that, he was trying to land a punch on the tiger. The hit was so strong that the monster even closed one of its eyes after being struck by the explosive attack. The bystanders and our heroine were also affected by the attack. Smoke rises, smoke falls, and the protagonist thought that the penalty of the patelis ring was to devour the user's fear. However, the bastard still managed to open his eye again, even after being wrecked by the protagonist, and the system announced that the penalty was being activated. Patelis was a green-class monster that the protagonist had hunted in the past, and if someone felt fear of it, the creature would become so powerful that it was impossible to defeat. The ring was created from Patelis' core, and its penalty was that the first to feel fear would be eliminated. The rule was that the first to lose their will would take a trip through the sky. The MC was heading toward the students while asking, "Is Han okay?" The big guy replied, "I managed to stop the red liquid from coming out." The MC thought his companion was still breathing, but they needed to act fast since he had lost a lot of red liquid. The protagonist asked for the radio. "There's probably a control center," they said. "We should inform the higher-ups." The professor was pulling the item out of his pocket. When he handed it to the protagonist, he didn't even think and just grabbed the radio. The protagonist turned him on the radio. "We've cleared the dungeon, but there are some casualties," he reported. "There was interference. The dungeon changed from purple to green, and the injured one has a severe wound." Then, out of nowhere, he spoke a code. "I'm leaving the dungeon," our hero said. "Send a rescue team as soon as possible." The MC was giving Hen's information, but Jum wondered how an E-rank student knew about injury codes and the reporting system. Jum asked, "What's Joonwoo's true identity?" Since he was supposedly just an inexperienced young man. But the protagonist didn't answer, and the guy was already pissed, shouting to ask if the boy hadn't heard him. The moment he was about to say something else, he took a punch straight to the mouth. Obviously, the one who threw the punch was the protagonist. The guy was tearing up while the protagonist said a supervisor should be able to assess a situation, but the guy was still angry and wanted to argue with him. That's when the big boss laid down the law and said, "If the extra says one more word, I'll send him to Brazil." After that, the professor fell silent and said nothing else. A few minutes later, outside the dungeon, the students were leaving. Our hero had a sad look as he observed his companion's condition. Wook asked, "Are you okay?" He then mentioned that his friend couldn't hold back, and the MC replied, "Thanks to that, no one was eliminated." The second greatest Go-8 said that everyone would soon know about him, and that it wouldn't take long for Saktu to find out as well. At that moment, our protagonist stopped being slow and revealed that a teacher from the school had tried to get rid of him. And in 19, an 18-year-old boy had lost his arm, as it should have been from the beginning. The MC asked his friend, "Do you really think these things make sense?" After seeing the protagonist's expression, Woik started trembling. Our hero stated, "If something like this happens again, I won't let it slide." As he walked away, the MC added, "You won't like seeing me in my active days again." A few hours later, the shameless teacher was in Wook's office. He said there had been issues with the test and that it was Cha who had forced them to switch to a practical exam. The man explained that the test had been implemented to address the inequality between the other classes and Class E. He insisted that there was no connection between that decision and a particular incident. The director stated, "Even in a situation like this, Jung keeps making excuses." He then shouted, "Do you really not know that the test was designed to expel our guy from school?" The shameless teacher was shocked. He hadn't expected Woik to already know this. He wondered if there was someone more influential than Minister Mayam Jin. But then, he dismissed the idea, thinking it was impossible since he didn't know anyone like that. Trying to regain his composure, he said, "There's nothing wrong with the test," and that no one had been forced to participate in the subjugation. As he was about to make up more nonsense, the goat interrupted, saying that the problem was the sudden shift to a practical test. Since a score of 60 stars was required to pass, and Juin already knew that the special students had no chance, the situation was unfair. The man pointed out that the MC was not an ordinary student, as he didn't need to take the exam, it still achieved the best result in the test. He then claimed that the accident in the dungeon was a disaster known as dungeon interference, and in one of his top 10 biggest realizations, he stated that the test had also been approved by Woik. At that moment, the goat was left speechless because he had, in fact, approved it. Wu gave up on continuing the discussion, saying he understood and instructing the teacher to prepare the reports, since they would analyze the footage before deciding what to do. After that, the shameless teacher started leaving the director's office with a smile on his face. But at that moment, he froze as Voight told him he wanted to make one thing clear. He wasn't afraid of Minister Mongjin at all, because the only person he had ever feared in this world was Joonwu from 40 years ago. The man asked what the goat meant by that. Voight warned him that if something like this happened again, there would be nothing he could do to help. John, hearing that, was filled with fear. Outside the academy president's office, a shameless teacher sighed. The next moment, he called the minister, assuring him that the matter wouldn't leak. Menjin responded, saying that fortunately Zhang Yin's injury wasn't fatal, so they wouldn't blame Jun for the incident. And since Henin was never an official candidate to begin with and was responsible for getting Professor Qi expelled, he should be grateful that he wasn't seriously injured. The teacher apologized, admitting that he hadn't expected their hero's abilities to be that high. The minister then asked if the protagonist truly had the skills to justify his admission. Just as the shameless teacher was about to respond, Manjin cut him off, saying he would get straight to the point. As a member of the Parents' Association, he believed that the candidates for the council had already been decided and asked for Jun's opinion. Fearful, the shameless teacher agreed, saying he also thought that way. The minister responded that it was great. He then added that Shah had worked hard and shouldn't be discouraged, suggesting they could have lunched together sometime. After that, the minister ended the call and the shameless teacher sighed. He wondered how a student could be so powerful, since our guy was beyond the level of an ordinary student and even stronger than veteran hunters. But he decided that he couldn't waste this opportunity. He just needed to take down Joonwu, no matter what it took. Elsewhere, someone told the protagonist that it was going to hurt quite a bit, but he didn't care at all. But in the next moment, our big guy started screaming because a doctor was pressing a cotton swab on his arm. The nurse said it was already done and that he shouldn't lie down until it dried, along with a few other things. Our heroine said that her future husband was acting like a baby and didn't even seem like he had just taken down a green rank boss. The MC told her to shut up. He wondered if the pain was because he hadn't used a supernatural weapon in a long time and told himself that things weren't like before. Our hero said that she kept showing up and it annoyed him. The girl said she would never come again if he promised to help her. The MC asked, "Are you seriously still trying to join the council?" and questioned how many times we would have to refuse. He said that whether she got into the council or not wouldn't change anything for him. Out of nowhere, someone said that getting into the student council wouldn't be easy at all. Anne was surprised and said she had heard that he had been transferred to our hero's room. That person was the third biggest goat in the story, and the MC asked how he was feeling. The boy said he was fine, but his wounds hurt a lot. Our hero asked if his companion had heard that the arrogant guy had given up. Hen said he had heard about it right after the practical exam. The protagonist said that when someone saves your life, the least you can do is show up and say thanks, but the guy still ran away. Hen said it didn't matter since they had survived. The protagonist asked if his companion wasn't being too optimistic, since his arm was no longer there. After hearing that, the boy was left speechless. And honestly, I have to say, this is the biggest waste of an amazing character I've seen this year. The Geo had said that his father always told him that as long as he wasn't eliminated, he could always overcome the greatest challenges. And he added that since he hadn't been sent to Brazil, everything could work out in the end. The MC thought that at first he found the boy very suspicious, but he had sacrificed his arm to save someone reckless. Even 40 years ago, people like that were very rare. He thought it had been a long time since he had heard that phrase, and it completely ruined the mood. Our heroine asked why the boy said it was difficult to get into the council. The boy replied, "I heard that Anne wanted to join the council, but it will probably be very difficult." She asked, "Is it because I'm in Class E?" The boy laughed, "Not at all." Then he asked, "Have you ever heard of the Parents' Association?" Both were surprised by this. The girl said, "From the way Han spoke, this group doesn't seem normal." He nodded, "You're exactly right. There are 5 first-year members in the Parents' Association, and those parents have 5 children in total. The number of council members per grade is also 5. He paused. "Do you two understand what I'm saying?" Our heroine was shocked. He continued, "It's a group of influential parents who have already decided to place their children into the council." Feeling a bit awkward, she asked, "So, did you get in that way too?" The boy shook his head. "No, I only managed to get in after a reserve spot opened up." The protagonist asked, "Does someone have to be approved to enter? If they're not, do they just get rid of another person?" After Hyan didn't answer, the MC asked, "What happened to the students who were eliminated during the process?" Hearing this, our heroine was surprised, wondering if people were really eliminated because of this. The Go-8 asked, "Do you really need me to answer something like that?" Looking at our heroine, he continued, "It's strange for a senior to say this, but it'd be better if you gave up on joining the council." But she shook her head and said, "I won't do that." "Do you want me to give up without you trying?" she asked, because someone could get hurt because of the Parent Association. Looking at the protagonist, she added, "Don't you think this situation is ridiculous and needs to be fixed?" The NC thought that the corruption within the school was putting students in danger. Of course, he wanted to intervene, but the issue of Gigantiana's return was more important. "As I've said before, I'll repeat it now," he said. "Nothing would be a problem until I find Cha." Right after that, the boy said, "She's arrived just in time." And then, guys, our second heroine, or maybe the main heroine, appears behind the protagonist. Hannah started walking toward where the protagonist stood. Our hero was surprised, thinking that he couldn't believe things were suddenly falling into place out of nowhere. Joonwu stood up with a big smile on his face and went to greet his girlfriend. "It's been a while since we last saw each other," he said. But at that moment, our guy was completely ignored by the brunette, who walked straight past him toward our heroine. An said, "My sister has already tried several times to convince me to stop attending the academy." She then asked, "What are you planning to do now since you're already enrolled?" However, Yuri did respond and simply stared at her sister. And guys, we've got full-on waifu war happening right in front of us, while our two goats watch the scene awkwardly. The protagonist thought that he didn't know what had happened between them, but just by looking it seemed serious. He wondered if the reason Ain wanted to join the council was to surpass giants or something similar. Our heroine said, "Since there's nothing else to do, I'm leaving." And when the MC tried to say something, she cut him off, saying, "You're in an even worse situation." For the first time during this encounter, Yugi finally spoke, asking, "Did you get her?" An looked a bit surprised. As she walked away, she said it was too late for her sister to pretend to care about that now. Trying to lighten the mood, Hyan thanked her friend for coming and asked, "Did the protagonist and Uni already know each other?" While the two stared at each other, he commented their first impression of each other probably wasn't great. Thinking that he couldn't stay there any longer or he would just get in the way of their date, the guy started leaving, saying, "I have some things to take care of." The MC said that he wanted to talk to Unch, so the two of them started leaving the room together. Seeing this, Han felt even more awkward about the bizarre situation. Elsewhere in the hospital corridor, Uni asked, "What problem do you have with me?" The protagonist thought that he hadn't prepared for this conversation back when they first met. He wondered if he should get straight to the point, but figured it would be better to try getting closer by saying he was a fan, only to realize that wouldn't work because they wouldn't become friends that way. The girl said she had heard that the MC participated in the subjugation during the practical exam, but when the protagonist tried to say that he didn't do anything and that he handled everything poorly, she interrupted. Saying that his friend couldn't have done that alone and putting some weight on her words, she told the MC that it was a panic-inducing situation, but a first-year student managed to handle it. The advice he gave earlier wasn't something an amateur would say. Our hero was about to come up with another excuse, but at the next moment, he simply said that she was being way too confident. In playful interaction, Uni asked, "Are you seriously trying to provoke me right now?" Joonwu replied, "Obviously I'm not. I just want to know if we'll get along." Trying to wrap up the conversation, she asked, "So, are you planning to join the council or something like that? At the moment, you're probably just trying to make connections, but you don't need to. Your skills are already impressive." The protagonist said he had no intention of joining the student council, but once again she cut him off, saying, "I have one last thing to say." Now dropping the playful tone, she told him, "No matter what you do to get into the council, the only thing you should never do is involve my sister in it." The protagonist commented the two sisters are really alike. Hearing that, Yumi looked confused. He continued, "The only one who wanted to join the council is Ain, because he didn't care about it at all and was only trying to get closer to her to settle things with Syaku." For some unknown reason, completely out of nowhere, she elbowed the protagonist in the neck and slammed him against the wall. She shouted, asking, "Did your sister ask you for anything?" When our hero tried to say something, she demanded that he answer. She asked again, did Anne ask for help to get into the council, or did she ask for help with revenge? Our hero was already getting pissed off and prepared to fight back. But in reality, it wasn't anything that serious. He simply tried to push her away, which surprised the girl. Right after that, she quickly regained her composure and tried to land a kick on the protagonist. But this time, he struggled to defend against her attack. He dodged another strike, thinking that she was really skilled with her strikes. The two stared at each other for a moment before attacking again. He thought that this encounter was completely different from the last time. This level of skill was advanced even for dungeon management teams. Before he could finish his thoughts, our heroine was already going in for another attack. While dodging, he thought that he had really underestimated An. She was incredibly fast. He wondered why she had performed such a mediocre subjugation in the middle of the street when her skills were clearly above average. In the next moment, when she attacked again, our hero dodged once more and prepared to counterattack. But actually, that wasn't it at all. He just grabbed a bandage that was on his arm. Out of nowhere, he threw it at her face. It worked. Our heroine was caught off guard, giving our hero enough time to grab her by the neck. As he pinned her against the wall, she asked, "Wasn't Joonwoo's last move against the rules?" The protagonist questioned, "Are there even rules at the school we attend?" The girl replied, "For a special student, you adapted really fast. Guys, I don't know if it's just me, someone else chimed in, but did anyone else notice that this girl has the face of a dude?" The protagonist said, "You're better than I expected." He then asked what happened during the last subjugation. She answered, "The feel was very different from what you imagined. It wasn't about how a subjugation was done, but how much you could entertain the crowd." It seemed that this answer didn't make our hero very happy, as he looked visibly irritated. She asked, "What do you want to talk to me about?" The protagonist said, "It's nothing important. He just needed to speak with Unch's grandfather. All he asked was for her to retrieve a few weapons from headquarters." The girl looked puzzled when she heard this. She explained that it was impossible for her to take weapons from that place. Janwoo responded that he had heard the weapons were mainly for display, and since Subdu was the director of the support division, he should be able to authorize it. And he added, no matter the request, convincing her grandfather is nearly impossible. Just as the protagonist was about to say something else, a woman approached and called out to him. Still resting a hand on the girl's shoulder, the nurse intervened, telling him that he shouldn't be causing trouble in that area. In the next moment, the girl brushed his hand away. After a short exchange, she simply turned and walked off. The protagonist called after her, "I hope we meet again." Without looking back, she replied, "I prefer not to see you ever again." Smiling as if undeterred, he said, "That might be difficult. You're Subdu's granddaughter, after all." A few minutes later, he returned to his room. Han asked, "How did it go with Cho?" The protagonist answered, "Not very well." Han nodded. "Yeah, I figured." The protagonist then asked her relationship with her grandfather. "It's not exactly smooth, is it?" And seeing this, Han looked a bit surprised. He said it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was more like a relationship between coworkers. After hearing that, the protagonist was surprised and asked, "Do you really not have a family-like relationship?" The boy confirmed that's exactly the case. He then asked what the MC had talked about with her, and our hero replied, "I asked Che to retrieve something, but she said it wasn't possible." The boy nodded and said, "That makes sense. She's never asked her grandfather for anything before." Just looking at him is already scary. The MC asked, "What do you mean by that?" Have responded, "It's not something I can say here." Laughing, he added, "It's your fault though. Making that kind of request doesn't make any sense." Joonwoo asked, "Should I just give her money?" At that moment, Han laughed even more and said, "There's only one thing that would catch her interest." Our hero asked, "What is it?" The boy replied, "To get a favor from Uns, you'll have to make Anne give up on joining the council." He added, "I don't know the reason for that, but I'm sure my friend doesn't like the fact that her sister is attending the academy." Our MC thought that made sense, since during his fight with her, the girl had mentioned something about it. Han said that if our hero tried to convince Aang to give up, they might be able to get what they wanted. But Joonwoo told Han to stay quiet. The reason for that was because someone was passing by where they were. A few hours later, in another place, our heroine was sitting on a bench in a plaza. The person who had passed by the room earlier was her. Now she was recalling what she had overheard in the conversation between the protagonist and Han. She thought about how she had done everything to become a member of the council just to get her revenge. John Subdu, and with her current abilities, she wouldn't be able to join the council. Maybe she wouldn't even be able to graduate from the academy. That was why she needed the MC's help, since he was a first-year student who was far stronger than he should be. If she had his support, she would be able to graduate. She told herself that now she had no chance of getting help from our hero, but she convinced herself that it didn't matter. After all, things had always been this way, and this time, she would just have to handle everything on her own again. But suddenly, someone arrived at the place where she was sitting. That person was the protagonist, who immediately asked why she had acted so pathetically. Our hero asked if she wasn't going home since it was already getting late. The girl replied that she was on her way. The MC said he had a question for her. He then asked if she was thinking about giving up. Hearing this, Anne was slightly startled. She asked why our hero thought she would give up. He said he already knew she would say that. The protagonist smiled because, up until now, he hadn't seen this moment happen in the story. In the next moment, he said that he had fought against Cha. Hearing this, our heroine was once again surprised. She asked what he was talking about, and the MC responded that he really had fought against her, and that Udio was even more powerful than he had expected. That was why things had gotten complicated. The two of them didn't get along and ended up fighting again. Because of that, he was planning to change the way he handled things. He said he would stop trying to ask nicely and would just threaten Uni instead. After hearing this, the girl was confused. She commented that the MC was exactly what she expected, too aggressive. She asked if he was joking, but the MC said he was looking for her weak spot. On question what kind of weakness her sister could possibly have. Pointing at our heroine, the protagonist said Uni's weakness is her own sister. He turned to Yan and added, "You need to pay attention." He explained that Che was the leader of the council, a top-tier hunter, and on top of that, her grandfather was the head of the association. Then he asked, why would someone so powerful care about someone like Aeon? Because no matter how hard the heroine works, she'll never reach Annie's level, and there's a reason Yan isn't in the Hunter Academy. If she were, it would affect Shia's future career. Or maybe she's afraid Ain could take her place. After hearing this, the girl spat out the juice she was drinking. She said, "I know my own abilities, and what you're saying doesn't make any sense." But the MC told her, "You just need to make it make sense." Hearing this, our heroine was confused about what exactly the protagonist meant. The hero then said, "I'll help you. That way, you'll be able to face Inch and eventually find your weakness." After hearing this, the future wife of our guy was even more shocked by what she had just heard. He asked, "Aren't you confident?" After hearing that, the girl pulled herself together, thinking about something we don't know just yet. In the next moment, she shouted that she would make it happen and surpass her sister. Our hero thought that this was how things should have been from the start. He stood up from the bench and said, "That's enough for now." The conversation was over. He added that they didn't have much time. Starting tomorrow, they would begin training. The goal was for her to become a candidate for the council before the second semester. Just as she was about to ask something, he cut her off. "That's exactly it," he said. "The Parents' Association, or anything else like it, has to be eliminated." As he walked away, he asked, "Do you understand?" But before the protagonist could leave, the girl called out to him again. With tears streaming down her face, she said, "I won't forget this favor," and thanked him. Elsewhere, at a sushi restaurant, someone asked if our third ghoul was okay. "I've been worried," one person said, "because the boy became so confident after entering Class A." Another person replied, "This is something to celebrate. Jan's happy to have passed." In the next moment, someone arrived at the entrance of the place where those people were gathered. And the one who arrived was the shameless professor who apologized for being late. After that, everyone recognized him. Someone said they had heard there was an accident during the exam and asked if the professor was all right. The man replied that nothing bad had happened. The people in this meeting were part of the first-year Parents Association and jungments that they could now discuss the main topic of the gathering. They needed to prepare for the admission period since the semester was ending. That's why they would begin by reviewing the documents. After analyzing the papers, they were to sign them. He handed them to Tang's father, whose name was Jung Han. Then he continued distributing a stack of papers to several other people considered important in the industry until he reached the last person, Juch's father, Minister Mingyan, who had been a nuisance since the beginning of the story. The professor said they could take their time signing the documents and asked if they had any questions. Jung said he had a question about the practical exam that took place a few days ago. He had heard that a special student had cleared it alone, and he asked if there was any chance that the boy would try to run for the council. After hearing this, everyone was surprised. The shameless professor said that our hero had shown no interest and that there was no possibility of their children not getting in. So they should be at ease, he added. To be honest, it's very unlikely that our big guy would apply. After hearing that, the minister said he had a question. "Do you have a way to handle this matter in case your assumption is wrong?" Jumin smiled. "That's obvious," he replied. "You shouldn't worry. I'll do everything to make this plan work." He grinned again. "I'll ensure that each of your children gets into the student council." The next day at the Hunter Academy, the protagonist entered his classroom. In the next moment, someone shouted, "He's finally here." Several students rushed toward our big guy, bombarding him with endless questions. Our hero was completely overwhelmed. They wouldn't stop asking how he had managed to subjugate the dungeon. The protagonist wondered how he had ended up in this situation. The reason? A poster on the wall announced that he had ranked first in the test. He thought, that's insane. The students kept asking him countless questions, not stopping even after several minutes. Finally, our big guy activated his aura and told everyone to get out of his way. "I don't know any of you," he said. At that moment, the extras realized they were no longer dealing with the old Joonwu. Our hero started heading to his seat, and our heroine spotted him. The protagonist told the girl, "I hadn't expected the professor to give me a perfect score." She responded they wouldn't alter the results, which is why they revealed the true score. Our hero thought that at least the stars weren't manipulated. Joonwu asked, "Are you following the instructions I gave you?" She replied, "I am. How long do I need to continue physical training?" The MC said it doesn't matter if you have good weapons. If you lack strength, it's useless. The girl said, "I understand that. But even so, you need to prepare since the final exams are approaching." The protagonist asked, "Is it another dungeon?" A replied, "It will be a written test and a sparring match." Our hero thought that the academy's exams were strange and wondered why students had to fight each other. But he said, "Actually, that's better since you only need to beat one person." She asked, "Who would that be?" The protagonist said, "It's obvious. You only need to defeat Juch. He's undoubtedly a candidate for the council. Since his father is the minister and after the trouble he caused with you, the professor tried to fail him. And this kind of chaos wouldn't be possible without the Parents' Association." Then he said, they were told the council members were selected based on their exam results and there was a chance he wouldn't make it to the first round. But as long as she could defeat the boy, she could pass the first phase without any problems. After hearing that, the girl started thinking. Once again, the protagonist asked, "Aren't you confident?" She then said, "I'll try." The MC asked, "You're just going to try?" The girl corrected herself, "No, I'll make it happen." The protagonist smiled. "That's great. Starting tomorrow, we'll train in martial arts. If you have time, you can invite your friends." In the next moment, the girl had a different expression and said, "I don't have any friends." After hearing that, the protagonist looked at her with a pitying expression. Our girl asked, "Why are you looking at me like that? You don't have any friends either." The MC asked, "Why do you think that?" He said Woig is a friend and then tried to remember other names, but he couldn't come up with even one more. Suddenly, he recalled someone saying something to him, but he couldn't remember exactly what it was. After that memory surfaced, the protagonist went silent. Anna asked what was wrong and if there was a problem, his expression indifferent. Jung said it was nothing. He was just distracted. At the hospital, where our hero had been earlier, Hyan thought about how boring it was there, but having his classmates around hadn't been so bad. He considered watching something on YouTube. The boy reached for his phone, but then he noticed that his arm was missing. A sad expression appeared on his face as he realized it. In the next moment, someone entered the room calling out, "Our Go-8 son." As soon as that person arrived, the boy's mood lifted. He then asked, "Hasn't Dad gone to work?" The man replied, "I talked to the team leader and got some time off." He asked if his son was feeling better. The boy said he wasn't in pain. The man told him, "Your father lost an arm during a subjugation, but he never gave up on his dream. Because of that, he became an even stronger hunter. As long as you keep training, your left arm will improve every day." Pulling something from his shirt, the man said, "I've discovered something." He claimed he could prove that the Parents' Association was involved in the accident that happened years ago. Han asked if his father was still thinking about that. The boy's father asked if the test had been planned, but then suddenly changed. Hearing that, Hyan went silent. Just as the man was about to continue speaking, the boy shouted at his father, telling him that he should stop thinking about it because he had been fired for investigating it. "And because of that, we've lost everything we had," he added. He questioned what his father was still trying to do after all this time. "Guys, for the first time, I think our boy Han might have crossed the line a bit," one of them said. His father couldn't even say anything back. The boy then said that his father should accept that no matter how much he investigated, he would never take down the Parents' Association, and that he would also never be able to hunt again. When the man tried to say something else, Han cut him off, saying he didn't want to hear any more stories about his grandfather, because no one would believe in something that happened 40 years ago. "Guys, could our boy actually be Han's grandfather?" One of them wondered. "I don't think so, but maybe," another replied. After the boy left the room, his father sat on the bed, thinking about what he should do. Elsewhere, our hero was asking if his underlings had found anything new. The chubby one said there was nothing suspicious in classes C and D. Hearing that, the protagonist asked about the rest. The boy said, "It's a bit weird to ask people from classes A and B." The MC thought he was trying to figure out who wanted to join the council, but these guys weren't enough for that kind of job. Our boy told them they had done a good job, so they would get a reward. Seeing this, the guy said, "It's not necessary." The protagonist told them, when an adult offers payment, kids should just accept it and say thank you. Handing them the money, our hero added, "Just take it." I'm starting to get irritated. The chubby one said, "There's only 1,001 in here." The MC told them, "You don't need to be embarrassed. At least you can buy a snack with it." As they walked away, they thought the money wasn't enough to buy anything. The protagonist commented, "You guys really are good lackeys." Seeing the boys, he remembered when he was new and how even 1,001 made him feel like he owned the world. But that didn't matter now because he needed to focus on what had to be done. Training aimed to defeat Juch. As for the written exam, he could only hope she studied, since the most important part was the fight. Juch's skills were bad, but they still had to prepare since they didn't know what the association might do. The problem was that there wasn't a good place to train Yan, and asking Woig for help would attract too much attention. Out of nowhere, someone called out to our hero. That person was our third biggest goat, who said he was happy to see his friend again. The MC asked, "Has Heen already been discharged?" The boy replied, "I'm only at school to handle some paperwork in the office. I heard you're going to help Ayan. How's that going?" After explaining everything that had happened, the boy said he understood the situation. He mentioned that if Class D wanted to use the academy, there were restrictions. The protagonist replied, "That's exactly what I'm worried about." He then asked, "Do you really plan to fight against the association?" The MC said, "Of course, it's obvious." The MC wanted to know why his friend was asking. The boy responded, "It won't be easy. You might even be risking your life." The MC laughed and said, "We've all managed to get through this together. We'll find a way again." Jen admitted that the protagonist was right. In some way, Dan survived the dungeon. He recalled the things that had happened inside as it was collapsing, even the moment when he had put himself in front of the Ergen boy to save him. After remembering all that, the Go-8 felt sad again about what had happened. He said, "I wonder what would have happened if the MC had been in the accident 2 years ago." Hearing that, our boy was confused. But in the next moment, Han said it was nothing and added that he could find a training location for our hero. He mentioned he could take his friend to the Student Council's training academy. Inside the council's office, a shameless professor said, "I'm going to be honest with you." Looking at the boy standing before him, he stated Juch is the person in the most danger at this moment. Hearing this, the boy asked, "What do you mean, Professor?" Juman replied, "The MC might want to enter the council." After hearing that, the extra was shocked. To make things even more intense, the professor added, "Your hero has passed without even taking the evaluation." And that wasn't all. He even managed to defeat a green rank monster alone. I saw it with my own eyes, so I have no doubts. After hearing that, the extra was even more terrified. Shaking with fear, he said, "My spot on the council is secure because my father helped me." The professor responded, "There's a limit to how much parents can interfere with the school." German kept throwing facts at the boy, while the extra kept insisting, "You would just need to stop him, Professor." The man said that Juch couldn't afford to lose in grades. The boy was thinking about how, when he first entered the school, the man in front of him had promised he would get him into the council. Joe told his student not to be discouraged because he had the test's answer key. He just needed to memorize it and make sure no one found out, since the most important thing at that moment was the fight. And after remembering how he got completely wrecked by the protagonist, he admitted that he didn't think he could win. But the shameless professor said he had a plan. He reached in his shirt pocket, pulled something out. What he took out was a bracelet, similar to the one Juch had used in the fight against our hero. Juman said it was an unregistered bracelet that wasn't recorded in the association and was of B rank. After seeing it, the boy was shocked. He said that almost everyone in the school was dank, and then he realized just how good the item was. The shameless professor said that the minimum rank for hunters was B, so his students should use it in the fight. With a smirk on his face, the bastard said it was completely overpowered, like using cheats in a game. Laughing, he asked where Gentman had gotten that, and the professor said it was from his father. The extra commented that he had heard Juman's father was part of the subjugation team, trying to change the subject. Juman said that was a long time ago. He then mentioned that he had called a senior to help his student get used to his new ability. In the next moment, someone appeared at the door, and I was absolutely sure it was Ina. Even before reading ahead, after seeing who was there, the boy was shocked, saying that it should have been impossible. The reason for that was because it really was our second heroine who appeared. The boy said it was incredible because, with her help, there was no way he could lose. The man then told him to listen to all of her orders because he had made a special request. Thinking that he never imagined she would agree, he figured the reason must have been that she didn't like the MC. Then he told them they could talk about the training. Placing a hand on the heroine's shoulder, the shameless man told her to take good care of her junior. The girl responded that she was somewhere else inside the school's academy. Our hero was getting fighting advice while sparring with her, but our heroine was getting completely dominated by the protagonist. Unable to fight back, she then called for a break, saying she couldn't keep up with him anymore. The girl pointed out that they were just practicing and asked, "Aren't you going too hard on her?" Our hero replied, "We need to train properly." I then said, "If we're going all out, you should teach her how to use her abilities. Everyone uses them in fights. She can't just rely on her fists." Joonwu sighed and said, "It's easier to show than to explain." He told her, "Take off your gloves and use your abilities against me from now on." She looked confused, but the MC urged, "Think of it as a real fight. Attack me seriously." He then asked, "Do you really think you can take me down with just one punch?" An asked, "Are you crazy? I won't use my ability on someone unarmed." Joonwu replied, "If you keep complaining, I'll just stop the training." In the next moment, she activated her bracelet. The system confirmed that her ranked abilities had been approved, activating her flame magic. She said, "I don't care if you get hurt." Then she charged toward the protagonist, magic in her hands. She fired her fire ability at him, but he dodged it effortlessly. In the very next instant, he was already standing right in front of her. The protagonist grabbed the girl's arm, and then he delivered a punch to her body, sending her flying. After that, she crashed into the ropes of the ring. The protagonist told her to get up and try attacking him again. In the next moment, our heroine activated her flame abilities once more, but this time she activated her second ranking skill, Right after, she started running toward our hero again. She attempted to land a hit on the protagonist while he noticed that she had switched to close combat. As he dodged, he thought to himself that it was a good attempt, but our hero decided to stop dodging and instead landed a punch straight into her stomach. Anne was knocked down again. The MC said that she was probably wondering why she couldn't land a hit on him, even though her ability had a greater range. He explained that the reason was that an ability had to be used in sync with her movements, but when she used her ability, she was only thinking about how to use the next one. Anna looked confused and asked, "Isn't that normal?" The protagonist said no, because that would create a gap between your skills. Instead of thinking about how to use an ability, you need to focus on how to attack. The girl said she didn't understand what he was trying to tell her. With a smile, the protagonist said, if that's the case, she would just have to learn the hard way. As he tried to land a punch on her, the MC continued giving tips on how to defend and counterattack her opponents. He explained that the moment she found an opening, she could use the full force of her ability. While thinking to himself, he admitted that he had expected the girl to give up quickly, but she had courage. He wondered how long she would be able to hold out. In the next moment, our heroine seemed to have an epiphany as she suddenly realized something. For the first time, the girl dodged one of our hero's attacks. She was already preparing to counterattack as she lifted her leg. And that's exactly what she did. She landed a powerful kick to our hero's stomach. After that, even the protagonist staggered to the side and almost fell to the ground. Our heroine activated a third-rank skill and charged toward our hero once again. But for some reason, the protagonist jumped and the two stood face to face, staring into each other's eyes. After seeing that, our heroine became confused and got distracted. At that moment, our hero landed a strike on her chin. The girl became dizzy from the hit she received, and the next moment, she was taken down. The MC said that in a fight, one should always look for openings in their opponent. And if it was just about skills or weapons, she wouldn't be able to exploit those openings with a one-sided approach. He asked if she now understood why basic techniques were important, but he thought that she really wanted to take him out. She had thrown an elbow strike purely out of reflex, without even realizing it. Our heroine said that she was still curious about who the protagonist really was. He asked why she was suddenly bringing that up. She said it didn't make any sense since they were the same age. Looking at the protagonist, she was about to say something, but stopped midway. After that, even our big guy got a little scared, thinking she might have figured out he was a reincarnator. She questioned whether her future husband was actually a secret agent trained since childhood. The MC told her to stop talking nonsense. The guild entered the academy and said he didn't expect to see them there so early. The protagonist and our heroine greeted Ken, and he asked if they were doing well, since it had been a while since they last used the academy. The girl said she was fine and that it was enough. He said that he always fought his father in the ring, even though he lost most of the time. Our hero asked what he planned to do from now on. Ken asked why the MC was bringing that up out of nowhere. He said that even if he left the council, he still had to graduate and had been thinking a lot about that in recent days. His whole life he had thought about becoming a hunter, but that was out of the question now since he had lost an important part of himself. After hearing that, the protagonist fell silent, feeling guilty since he had also been in the dungeon. In the next moment, he said, actually, it isn't impossible. Han asked what he meant, and our hero said, it isn't impossible for you to become a hunter. You could still do it, even without an arm. The boy said, I know you're trying to cheer me up, but you shouldn't say things like that so lightly. The protagonist replied, I'm not saying it lightly. I'm speaking from experience. He continued, I've heard of a hunter who lost his right arm during a subjugation, but the hunter didn't give up. He kept training and eventually became even stronger than before he lost his arm. And he always used to say, before the protagonist could finish, Han said, as long as someone is alive, they can still make things work. The protagonist smiled, exactly right. When the boy was about to ask the man's name, the protagonist said his name was Chun. He passed away a long time ago, which was why his friend didn't know him. But after saying that, the Geo said that Chung Han was his grandfather, and even our big guy was surprised by the coincidence. A few hours later, at the Academy's training grounds, an explosion happened outside. The reason for it was that Juch was training with his new bracelet, and the bastard said that the protagonist should just wait and see what was going to happen to him. Someone said they knew he was excited about his new toy, but he needed to calm down. That person was our second heroine, who said that the fight was only the second test. She knew that Juch did like the NC, but he should be careful not to use too much force or he would be disqualified. He also couldn't use a technique that hadn't been revealed to us yet. The boy said he wouldn't need to use that against our hero, because he wasn't strong enough. The shameless professor was thinking that the boy was really good at using his skills, and asking for our heroine's help had been the best decision he could have made. With a smirk, he thought that this was how the MC's reign would come to an end. But at that moment, He remembered that Woik had said the only person he was afraid of was Joonwu from 4 years ago. However, Jun kept talking without concern, and he said that was just the phrase of an old fool who still hadn't gotten over the glory of the past. A few years ago, at the headquarters of the Subjugation Exam Management Unit, our hero asked if Chung Hung was there. After hearing that, someone looked surprised. Looking at our hero, he asked what his boss was doing there since it was already late. The MC said that the number of dungeons had decreased, so he went out for a drink. Woik mentioned that they had brought Hoon's favorite drink. Chung Hoon was the leader of Team 2 and he was one of the most talented people the MC admired. The protagonist asked where Hoon's companions were and the man said they had stepped out but wouldn't take long to return. The MC said that in that case they could wait, but Chung insisted that they should start drinking without waiting. The MC thought to himself that the only downside to his friend was his love for alcohol. It had already been 5 years since they met and became friends. Before they even realized it, he, Wook, and Hoon had become close comrades. While drinking, our hero asked his friend if he was busy. The man admitted that he really was, but even so, it was something he could still live with. And the reason he said that was because 8 months ago, he had suffered an accident in which he lost his right arm. He told his friend that he shouldn't feel awkward talking about it since accidents were a normal part of life. The protagonist didn't know what to say in that situation, thinking to himself that it was a waste. His friend was one of the most talented people he had ever known. Chun asked the MC if there was a technique he could learn using only his left arm and wondered if his friend could teach him. After hearing that, Jungo asked, would something like that really be enough? But the man replied, it's too soon to give up. As long as I'm alive, I can make anything work as long as I don't quit. And from that moment on, Hood's body began to recover, and his real training started. Using his sword with his left hand was more difficult, since he had always relied on his right arm. But in the end, he managed to master it, proving everyone wrong. His swordsmanship became even stronger than it had been before losing his arm. That proved that Chun was truly a perfect swordsman. The man said the training was really tough. But our hero told him, don't say that, you're the one who asked for help in the first place. At that moment, the protagonist was caught off guard, and he asked if his friend was really still using that. Hoon said, of course, it's a symbol of how much I've trained. I plan to give it to Dong in the future. The guillotine blade was the wooden sword that Hoon had used during training. It wasn't a blade meant for battle, but it was perfect for practice. Wood pointed out Dong doesn't seem interested in becoming a hunter. Why would you pass that sword down to him? Hoon replied, if that were the case, I'd just give it to my grandson instead. The protagonist added, your friend needs to live a long time if he wants to see his grandson. Woik asked, isn't it dangerous to say things like that? Chong agreed, it's not good to say things like that. Haven't you ever watched movies? In the next moment, they made a toast. Our hero said, we should do our best to get eliminated as soon as possible. Outside the cabin, Jung Woo asked, has Dawn gotten hurt while playing? Hoodoo laughed, saying, I was afraid it was something serious, but I was surprised when I heard what my son had said. With a smile on his face, he added, he told me that as long as he's alive, they'll find a way to make anything work. And in the end, our hero, Amushik, had to listen to their friend brag about his son the entire night. Outside the academy, someone was saying that they had left the photo somewhere. That person was Han, and he was showing a picture to our couple. The protagonist thought that the moment he saw it, he felt like laughing. The leader of the Zone 2 camp was someone who loved drinking and chatting. He was also the swordsman and king closest to perfection in his lifetime. His name was Kim Chong-hun. Our hero remembered that he had once told his friend to live a long life so he could see his grandchildren. After recalling that, he had a sad expression, thinking that he shouldn't have said those words back then. Our heroine asked if Han's grandfather had passed away a long time ago. The boy confirmed it, saying he had heard that his grandfather had been eliminated in an accident. After hearing that, our hero became deep in thought. The boy asked if something was wrong with his friend, but the protagonist said it was nothing. Han said he was surprised because he didn't know Jun Woo was familiar with his grandfather's story. Continuing, he said that, to be honest, it was hard to believe that someone could become the strongest swordsman after losing their right arm. The MC said he was certain it was possible. The boy responded that if his friend talked to his father, they would probably get along well, the protagonist thought. He didn't know how Dong had been doing lately, so he asked, is your father all right? Dong replied, he's doing fine. Then he added, I tried to convince my father to let go of the case he's been so focused on, but he refused. He's still pursuing it. The protagonist was puzzled. What case are you talking about? He asked. Dong paused before answering. It's not directly related to Jun Woo, but a few days ago you asked if anyone had been excluded during the student council election. And yes, some students were. Both of them were shocked upon hearing that. It reminded them of the incident just days before the exam when the test was suddenly changed and 2 students were injured by falling rocks. The protagonist asked, "Is your father investigating that?" "That's right," Dong confirmed. "That's why he was dismissed. It was as if a security officer tried to take over the entire Parents Association. The outcome was inevitable." Hearing this, the girl beside them looked surprised. "So after that, he joined the council?" she asked. "Yes," Dong said, "but because of that, many didn't treat him well. Ain was the only one who accepted him." The MC asked if the candidate nominated by the association had also been involved in the accident. Heian said no, since there were only 4 members in the association and the nominees didn't take the exam with them. He still thought about it sometimes, always wondering what would have happened if he had reached out just a little earlier. Our heroine asked if that was why he had saved the arrogant boy last time. Hen said, "To be honest, there were moments when I regretted it. In the end, my path to becoming a hunter was in vain. But even so, when I think about the possibility of someone being eliminated right in front of me, I feel satisfied that I sacrificed myself instead." Our hero had a smile on his face after hearing that answer, but in the next moment, he was surprised. Lowering himself, he picked something up and wondered if it could be the guillotine blade. Hen said, "It's the only keepsake from Dawn, which my father had kept for years." Our hero thought about how his friend had once said he would pass that sword down to his grandchildren, and he asked Hen if he could borrow it. The boy said he didn't mind, but asked why. The MC replied, "My friend claimed his grandfather's story was impossible." The boy replied that old stories were always exaggerated. But the protagonist said, "This one isn't exaggerated at all." Then he asked Hen, "Would you like to watch the next exam?" A few days later, the written test for general subjects took place. It was the first day of the 4-day final exam. In a classroom, several students were working on their exams. Our hero was among them. He thought to himself that he couldn't understand a single thing on the test questions. He had never actually attended class since enrolling, so there was no way he could handle a math test. After all, he had spent his entire life fighting monsters. Then he looked to his side, and there was Juch. The protagonist thought that the extra looked focused on the test, but he obviously hadn't studied for it. He had most likely received the answers and just memorized them. If this continued, there could be obstacles in Goen's path. Our heroine didn't seem to be doing very well in the exam. She had a rather peculiar expression on her face. The protagonist wondered if she was okay since she didn't look very healthy. Joonwu thought about how she had always ranked first in the written exam, so he had no choice but to trust her. But then, out of nowhere, someone hit him on the head with a piece of paper. That person was one of the teachers. He told the protagonist not to look around while taking the test. Feeling awkward, the protagonist replied that he would pay attention. Several days passed, and now it was the 4th day of the exam. A speaker announcement told students to pay attention because the final first-year exam, the combat test, would begin soon. All first-year students were required to gather in the main auditorium. Our hero said, "It's finally starting." Looking at his future wife, he added, "We should hurry so we won't be late." The girl agreed. Inside the main gymnasium, our hero commented, "There are a lot of people here," while our heroine asked him to wait for her. But in the next moment, he looked surprised. I still don't understand why he suddenly looked so shocked since nothing major was shown in this panel. There were many people watching the arena, murmuring things I couldn't quite make out. There were even some reporters recording what was about to happen. The MC asked if the exams were always like this, and explained that this was the last exam of the semester and that most students who placed highly usually became council members. Expressionless, Joonwu thought that since they even brought caste subjugations, watching students with abilities fight each other was basically just entertainment. Someone announced that the exam would begin soon. The NC thought to himself that the adults were disgusting for broadcasting kids fighting just to make money. The announcer stated that President Wick would explain the exam rules. The Gillet said he would explain the test rules for all the students who had studied and trained hard. The first exam would randomly select 2 participants, and the winner would advance to the next test. With an ironic smile, the MC thought that the rules were exactly the same as the ones used during the subjugation tests they conducted among themselves in the past. Basically, the test would continue until a participant either surrendered or was defeated. The winner of the match would earn 1 point, while a loser wouldn't lose anything, just get 0 points. Participants with 0 points could re-enter as many times as they wanted, but if you had at least 1 point and lost, you couldn't participate again. Wei explained that the special protective gear would absorb most of the damage, but wouldn't completely protect students from all types of impact. He warned students not to get too excited or use their abilities recklessly. From that moment on, the test for Class A would begin. The goat said, "I hope everyone will get good results." In the next moment, they began drawing lots for the upcoming fight. 2 random extras were chosen, probably characters who would never appear in the story again, so I won't even bother mentioning their names. The announcers instructed the 2 selected students to enter the arena and prepare for the test. The referee told them to move into their starting positions. Then he announced, "You may begin." The red-haired student was the first to charge forward. Our heroine was surprised by what she saw. She said, "This is incredible. So, this is how class of students fight?" Looking at her future husband, she asked the protagonist, "What do you think about the match?" But in the next moment, she was shocked. Our boy was asleep. The girl asked, "Why are you sleeping, especially when Class A is fighting?" The MC said, "The fight's a mess. There's nothing worth watching." Since he hadn't been sleeping well for the past few days because of exam prep, he figured this was a good time to rest. An asked, "Are you seriously saying that after seeing Class A's abilities?" At that moment, she wondered what kind of standard our boy had for him to say that without any hesitation. And I was right. Those two extras never appeared again. A few hours later, the announcer stated that Class D's fights were over. "An, wake up," she said. Stretching, he asked, "Isn't it already over?" She confirmed, nodding. "It's our turn now." The announcer then declared, "The fights for Class E will now begin. Students, please get ready." At that moment, everyone started to leave. They quickly headed to the cafeteria, and the arena, once packed, was completely emptied in an instant. The MC looked around and asked, "Was our class really that bad? No one wants to watch our fights?" The girl replied, "You're the last person who can say that. You slept through the other matches." But then something caught her attention. She was surprised to see Han, who was observing the upcoming rounds. The boy greeted our hero, and the protagonist returned the gesture. The announcer's voice echoed, "We will now introduce the first participant from Class E." The protagonist thought, "I should preserve my energy. Choosing someone of average skill would be more practical." The first participants from the protagonist's class were our heroine and a background character named Ji. And after seeing that, Joonwu says, "This isn't good. Nothing is going as we planned." But the girl replies, "I'll take care of it." Our heroine tells herself, "I should remember what I practiced and just follow what I've learned." Our hero says, "I want 10 consecutive victories, nothing less." Hearing this, An looks confused. The protagonist explains, "Our class has 20 people. You need to win exactly 10 consecutive matches." With a smile, our heroine thinks, "I will do just that." The referee announces, "Both participants take your positions." Then the next moment, the man says the match can begin, and the system announces J can use ranked D abilities. Out of nowhere, our heroine lands a punch to the girl's face. The girl is knocked to the ground, and the announcer states J has fallen. After that, all the background characters are in shock. The referee declares our heroine has won the first round, and even Han is surprised. The background characters start murmuring among themselves, while the protagonist watches the arena with a proud look. However, for some reason he wonders, was that a bit too much? The boys were wondering if Ain had really managed to knock someone out without using an ability. Then, in round 2, she also defeated another person. In round 3, it was no different as she took down another background character without any trouble. The announcer stated that our heroine was moving on to the 4th round with 3 consecutive victories. Several background characters were questioning whether she was really from the trash class. Han commented that it was truly impressive for her to become that strong in just a month. Looking at someone, he said that she probably had the same talent as her companion. That person was Go Yun, who was observing the heroine. Continuing, Han said that this was a test no one really cared about since it was for first years in Class E. He then asked if she was there because Ain was fighting, or was it because of Ju? She asked, "What does that have to do with anything?" and questioned if her friend wasn't helping Joonwu and An. Han replied that he couldn't help anyone alone. One of his juniors had said they would show him something interesting, which is why he came. After hearing this, Noonie was confused, since she knew nothing about it. The announcer stated that anyone wanting to participate in the next round should step forward. However, none of the background characters wanted to enter the arena. Then the announcer says that if there were no more challengers from Class E, the fights would end. In the next moment, someone raises their hand. That person was Juch. The man tells the student to step into the arena and prepare for the match. After seeing this, our hero is surprised, thinking that if he wasn't afraid after witnessing Anne's abilities, he might be hiding something. A few minutes later, the referee states that both participants should take their positions. Our heroine thinks that she was finally going to fight Ju. His ability was long range. When the referee announces that they could start fighting, An charges forward at the same moment. The background character thinks she was really going all out, but even so, he smiles and doesn't seem worried. Right after that, an explosion happens inside the arena. Upon seeing this, all the students are shocked, not knowing what had just happened. Even our hero is surprised, recognizing that ability. Han looks at Unch and asks, "What exactly did you teach Juch for him to be able to do that?" The background character, feeling proud, asks, did she manage to withstand it because of her protective gear, but says that it didn't matter because her endurance was low. Our heroine thinks that this wasn't the bracelet he used to wear and asks where he got that ability. "Many people were helping me because of my parents, and that's how I obtained this item," Juch says. Our heroine asks, "Do you really think that's something to be proud of?" "Yes," he replies, "it's something you could never have." Hearing that, Ayan got irritated. He asks, "Are you upset because I mentioned you don't have parents?" She tells herself, "I shouldn't get angry and fall for his tricks." Then she remembers what our hero had said: the first battle is understanding your opponent. She thinks that she first needs to figure out his ability. She wonders what category the extra skill belongs to and concludes that its rank must be much higher than hers. Activating her magic ability, she tells herself there's only one way to find out. As she shoots fire in Juch's direction, she says, "I have no choice but to keep fighting." The bastard just laughs and asks, "Do you really think using dank abilities would make any difference?" Our heroine thinks that magic category abilities have similar casting speeds, so she should go for a long-range attack. But in the next moment, she is surprised as Juch fires an explosion at her. However, our heroine manages to defend herself and is only thrown back a few meters. She wonders what that was. Even assuming he controlled the ability, its firing speed was too fast. She questions whether it really belonged to the magic category. Then he asks if she understood and says that the ability he was using was on a completely different level than those used by people like her. Our heroine thinks that if it were from the magic category, it would be impossible to use abilities consecutively due to cooldowns. She wonders if the style he was using was combat enhancement, since the only ability she knew that fit this profile was beetle bombardment. She shouted those words while charging at him. The extra also started advancing, saying that she had really figured it out, but it didn't make any difference. In the next moment, he lands a hit, but our heroine manages to defend herself. Right after that, she lands a punch on Juch's face. The bastard curses at Ayan, but she simply says, "Obviously, it made a difference for me to know what ability you were using, as his skill caused an explosion when his fist hit the air." So all she had to do was stop him from landing his punch. The protagonist thought that she was doing quite well. If she had mistaken it for a fire-based magic category skill, she wouldn't have been able to get close. Since it's difficult to stop an opponent from casting their ability, the standard approach is usually to look for gaps in their defense. But if the skill was an enhancement type, he would have to change his strategy. And since there was no delay between ability activations, using magic category strategies would lead to failure. The weakness was in the action itself. His skill required large movements to activate, specifically the air attack. If that action was nullified, the opponent would gain the upper hand. But the answer our heroine arrived at wasn't perfect, so she needed to be careful. In the next moment, the extra tried to land an attack on An. However, she once again defended herself with ease. He attempted to strike again, but the girl managed to block it once more. In the following moment, she landed a blow to his head. As she countered the boy's attacks, she thought that she could do this. She would take Juch down, and right after that, she grabbed both of his arms. The system announced that the user was activating the second form of the flame abilities. Immediately after, our heroine prepared to land a kick on the extra. At that moment, Juch thought he had to defend himself. Then, an explosion erupted within the arena. Our heroine was thrown back by the extra's attack and sent flying several meters away. Juch was irritated. He said, "You're acting proud just because you learned a little martial arts. Do you really think you can block me with just your arms?" As he walked toward Ayan, she realized she had no idea he could cause an explosion with just his knee. Standing in front of her, the extra said, "You should note your place." The system announced that the user was activating an enhancement category ability, and the bastard declared she should be eliminated. At the next moment, he moved to attack her, but someone placed their hands in front of him. It was the protagonist who said, "That's enough. If you continue, I'll eliminate you." The narrator stated that Anne was eliminated, and the next participant would be the MC. That bastard commended, so our hero has finally decided to show up. However, the protagonist didn't care about that. He asked, "Are you okay?" She responded, "It's not over yet," and that he should go back because his turn hadn't come yet. Our hero thinks that ever since she was hit by the first explosion, she had already reached her limit. For that, he would acknowledge her fighting spirit. The protagonist tells her that her defeat had already been announced. So, the match was over, but the girl tried to say something, and our hero tells her to stop being stubborn because a loss was a loss. After hearing that, Ain didn't try to continue. In the next moment, she left the arena. Some people tried to carry her on a stretcher, but she said she was fine and could walk. Shortly after, the protagonist called out to our heroine and told her that she had done a good job, so she shouldn't be sad about losing. After hearing that, Anne was surprised. As she walked away, she started to cry. The background character was proud as he called out to our hero, saying that he was worried the protagonist wouldn't show up. But our hero asked if the boy didn't think he had gone too far in his fight against our heroine. Seek says that he went easy on her and even let her walk away. And the MC replies that just because Gusto had obtained a B rank ability, he was acting arrogant. He asked if he had forgotten what happened at the warehouse when he tried to attack him. And after hearing that, the background character trembled. He continued, saying that the background character's ability wasn't just any ordinary skill, and asked where he got it from. The boy asked, "Why does that matter to the NC?" Our hero replied that he didn't need to ask who gave it to him because he could already imagine who that person was. He remembered someone saying that what happened was an accident and that he was also one of the victims. Thinking that the man from the past was very similar to Jun, he wondered if the professor was that man's son. However, in the next moment, the narrator stated that the second round could begin. The MC thought to himself that he'd just do what needed to be done, telling himself that Hyan should pay attention because he wouldn't be giving demonstrations all the time. Han was watching the arena, wondering if his friend was really planning to use only his right hand. The background character started laughing, saying there was a limit to how much the MC could underestimate people. He asked, "Do you really plan to fight using only one hand?" As his aura flared up, Juch declared that he was going to beat up our hero. In the next moment, he began activating an ability and used one of his skills to fight against the protagonist. Right after that, he started throwing multiple punches in our hero's direction. This caused several explosions throughout the arena. Even the students far away in the stands were affected by the attacks. The entire arena was in flames as the boy continued his relentless assault. The guy just wouldn't stop. He was still attacking our hero even after about 7 panels. Han comments, "This was supposed to be the first fight of the year, yet it has already reached this level." Finally, the background character stopped attacking. Laughing, he asked, "Did you really think that just being a little athletic made you more special than the others?" "But that doesn't matter," he continued, "since everything is about abilities. No matter how much you try to show off, you won't be a match for me." However, our hero says kids these days really have no hope. Hearing that, Juch became scared. Behind the smoke, the protagonist says young people really think that making reckless attacks will solve anything. Holding a wooden sword in his hand, he asks, "Why did you close your eyes and use your abilities so carelessly?" Juch says that doesn't make any sense and asks, "Are you really saying you haven't been hit even once?" The MC says that the boy really was an idiot, since the explosion from his skill only reached 1 meter, while the arena was much larger. Because of that, he hadn't needed to dodge a single attack. Charging toward the background character, the MC says that he was going to teach him how to fight. Seeing that the boy was left confused, the MC thought this was perfect for him. In the next moment, the boy attempted to land a punch on the protagonist, but for some reason, he became scared after doing so. And the reason for that was simple. Our hero had managed to hit the extra with just that wooden sword. Jolk wondered what had happened to his ability since it hadn't activated. But at that moment, he trembled once again because the protagonist was looking at him expressionlessly, using only one hand. The boy wondered why smoke was coming out of the protagonist's sword. With a frightened expression, he asked, "Did you manage to deflect the explosion with a wooden blade?" Joonwu replied, "If you don't believe it, you can try attacking again." That's when the guy lost it. Thinking about finishing off the hero and making him kneel before him, he started throwing a series of random attacks at the protagonist again. But in the next moment, a pained expression appeared on his face. Obviously, the reason for that was that the protagonist had landed another hit on him. Hunch was also surprised. He wondered if our hero had really managed to block the explosions with a wooden sword. Since it wasn't even a bullet from a gun, it shouldn't have been possible for him to stop an explosion in the same second. Han explained, "A wooden sword I lent to the MC has the ability to cut through mana." Jay asked, "Are you saying that the MC neutralized the skill by cutting the mana before the explosion happened?" The boy replied, "There's no other way to explain it." He then asked, "Do you have another theory about what he did?" She questions, "So are you telling me our hero is cutting invisible mana with an accuracy of 0.01 seconds right when the ability is activated?" If anyone said that was possible, there could only be 2 explanations. Either the person is a fraud or they're hunters from 4 years ago, back when the legendary Joonwu was still alive. The extra was kneeling in front of our hero, thinking that none of this made any sense. He was losing to a special admission student holding a wooden sword, while using a B rank ability with an unrestricted core. Yet, he still couldn't win. With a poorly drawn frame of mind, he thought that this couldn't be happening. Since his student council member's reputation and his hunting career were being destroyed, he was starting to lose his mind. The guy thought that this should be impossible. He wouldn't let something like this happen, no matter what. He was going to defeat our hero at all costs. Standing up, he said, "Ever since our hero appeared, my life has been completely ruined." In the next moment, the system started warning that the user was activating a new ability. Right after that, he prepared to attack. "I'm going to crush our hero no matter what," he declared. After saying that, the entire arena began to shake. Even stones started falling from the structure. The narrator said that the extra should stop, as he wasn't authorized to use that power. Other people started calling for the guards to stop him. Han wondered what kind of ability this was and said, if it continues, the entire auditorium will be destroyed. Che called Ju crazy, though she was also partly responsible for this mess. The extra was losing it. A dark aura began to emerge from his body, but in reality, it was a red aura launched for the NC. And the system announced that the ability's name was Nuclear Explosion. Our hero stood still as the attack came toward him. However, in the next moment, he got into a fighting stance and prepared to counterattack the extra's strike. It almost seemed like the attack really was similar to a nuclear explosion as it took on a physical form. And right after that, the entire screen turned white and an image of the protagonist being scorched appeared. Then, another massive explosion occurred in the arena. For some reason, the extras were still sitting there after everything that had happened. But that's when they got screwed too, as sparks from the MC's counterattack flew in their direction. They panicked and started running, having no reason to stay there. But the situation in the arena was really bad. One person was still standing, though it wasn't clear whether it was our hero or the extra. In reality, it was the extra who was still standing, his face showing exhaustion. The guy was starting to laugh, losing his composure. Yet our hero was still alive. However, now he was kneeling in front of Gusto. The boy asked, "How does it feel to lose after acting so high and mighty?" Getting closer to the MC, he said, "I won't forgive you." But even so, he should consider himself lucky. He didn't want to become someone who eliminated others, so he chose to be generous and only lead the protagonist to a crippled state. But before he could do anything, someone landed an attack on him. The background character wondered how this person had suddenly gotten behind him, and out of nowhere, the guy was flipped upside down. He fell face first onto the ground. While trying to figure out when he had been hit, our hero ordered him to get up. With a different expression, the MC said he would repeat himself and told the boy to stand up. I think the protagonist is really angry now, he thought, because he says that Juchim crossed the line. The background character still didn't understand what was happening. He was trying to get up, but he was already trembling. He was even sweating in front of our hero. And when he tried to activate the nuclear explosion ability again, the protagonist hit him once more. Man, the guy even did something so crazy that I won't even describe it because it might get demonetized. In the next moment, he collapsed on the ground again after being struck by our hero. As he tried to get up once more, he muttered to himself that he couldn't breathe. But at that moment, the protagonist told him to stand up again. He wasn't done yet. Now crying, the background character thought about how scared he was of being eliminated. He was sure that if he stood up again, the protagonist wouldn't spare him. Trying to back away from our hero, the background character begged for forgiveness, pleading with the MC not to eliminate him. "I admit I was wrong," he said, "and I swear I'll never do something like that again. I'm truly sorry." But the protagonist was still furious. "Do you even understand the ability you tried to use?" he asked. "It's dangerous, even in real battles. Because of you, the entire auditorium was nearly vaporized, and everyone had to run for their lives." The background character started crying, his voice shaking. "I never wanted that to happen," he sobbed. "I only heard it was a strong ability. I didn't know its true power." But the MC was really pissed off. The person who used that skill 4 years ago gave the exact same excuse, he snapped. "Do you know what happened to him?" Trembling in fear, the background character stammered, "I don't know." "What happened?" Activating a unique ability, the protagonist's voice grew cold. Someone like Juch doesn't deserve to be a hunter. But the guy really never learns. In a desperate attempt to make the protagonist stop, he asked, "Do you know who your father is? And if anything happens to me, your father will never forgive you." However, the protagonist didn't care in the slightest. He simply launched an attack toward the boy. And I really think things went south from there. The panel shattered, and maybe our hero actually eliminated the background character. But I'm still not sure about that, since after the protagonist attack, a huge cloud of smoke rose. Some men were wondering what had happened, while another said, "I can't tell. There's too much smoke." In the next moment, they saw the background character lying on the ground, and the narrator announced that the test could no longer continue. The fight was over, and the students had to leave the auditorium. As the announcement was repeated, the protagonist left the arena without that aura that even made me shiver. Someone asked if the sword the protagonist was holding belonged to Chung Hoon. That person was our director, who had a serious expression as he looked at our hero. Woi said that his friend had gone overboard in a fight against a student, but the protagonist didn't care at all about what his friend said. The protagonist replied that Woi shouldn't act as if he were still in his prime, and for that reason, from that moment on, he would be more aggressive and wouldn't care about keeping his identity hidden. Following our hero, the director said that the good days of the past were over. The MC asked, "Do you really think I'll just sit around forever?" A few hours later, inside the men's restroom, someone was holding a phone while Minister Mangjin was calling them. Of course, the one receiving the call was the shameless professor. Going back a few years, our hero was running somewhere, For some reason, the protagonist had a worried expression on his face, and I couldn't figure out what was happening since it hadn't been revealed yet. Now, I think I understand. His team's base was basically on fire. There were even several people lying on the ground, most likely taken out. Even a child's toy was there, probably belonging to someone who was no longer alive. Our hero was truly terrified. His expression looked far from good. Chum's sword was on the ground, and after seeing that, the protagonist immediately recognized it as the blade of the guillotine. And at that moment, the king felt true terror. When he looked down, he saw an unexpected scene. There was someone lying on the ground, and if he wasn't mistaken, a man appeared to be holding a woman in his arms. Upon witnessing the scene, the protagonist dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Moments later, several people arrived at the site and addressed him as Captain. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he asked, "What happened here?" One of them replied, "A monster escaped from a blue-rank dungeon, breached the camp, and launched a highly destructive attack." The protagonist's expression hardened. The standard procedure is to eliminate nearby dungeons first. How did this happen? Finally, one team member raised their hand and admitted, "We're at fault. We failed to clear the dungeon in time." The protagonist was visibly upset. It was just a blue-rank dungeon. That level should have been manageable. There was clear discomfort among the group. No one seemed able to explain exactly what went wrong. Then one of his teammates stepped forward and bowed. Hunter Che insisted on proceeding with fewer members than recommended for the mission, and that was when the protagonist truly lost his composure. He turned toward them and demanded how many people were aware of this decision, and the man said 7. Then the MC asked how many actually went, and the man answered 3. Our hero was not happy. He had to hold himself back from yelling at them. Then he asked, "Do the 3 of you always try to take supplies and loot meant for 7 people with just 3? The man said that wasn't the case. This was the only time. What happened was an unavoidable accident caused by dungeon interference. But at that moment, the protagonist stopped holding back. He said, "I don't care if you're stealing supplies." He paused, then added, "But there's one thing that can never be forgiven." He asked, "Do you know what that is?" In the next moment, he declared, "I will never forgive someone who ruins the work of my entire life. The work I put into this camp." Throwing the man to the ground, he said, "Look at what you've done. Because of your mindless recklessness, the camp is destroyed." He was seething. "I didn't endure all those hardships just to witness something like this. Do you think the extermination team is risking their lives for nothing?" The man kept repeating to himself that this wasn't his fault. He shouted, "I didn't want this to happen. I couldn't have known dungeon interference would occur," and that he was also a victim. Then he begged the MC for another chance, saying he would return all the profits they had made and could even pay for the camp's reconstruction. But ignoring all of that, the protagonist activated an ability on the guillotine and declared that the man was officially expelled from the extermination team. Because of this, his residence at the camp and his status as a hunter were revoked. And guys, the MC looked absolutely different in this panel. He stated that from that moment on, she would never again dream of becoming a hunter. And what I expected to happen actually happened, but I won't say it. You already know. Returning to the present, the shameless professor was ignoring all of the minister's calls. He already had 6 missed calls. The guy was cursing Seek, thinking about how many times he had told the boy to control his strength and never use nuclear explosion. And now it was all over. It had been broadcast to the entire country. They would probably start investigating everything and uncovering every detail. The worst part of all was that the bracelet wasn't registered, which was illegal. Maybe they would even find out about the incident from 2 years ago. And poorly designed. He told himself that all the blame would fall on him since the association had a lot of influence. The guy just punches the mirror and that's it. He doesn't even apologize to the mirror. He tells himself to stay calm since he needed to retrieve the bracelet. As long as they didn't find out who gave it to the boy, nothing would happen to him. And anyway, the minister had his own position to protect, and Uni also had no reason to speak. That's why he decided to think about the rest later, since the main priority at the moment was retrieving the bracelet. However, the next moment, someone asks if the man was looking for that and throws the item to the ground. That person was our hero, who remained expressionless. Juman asked what the MC was doing there and questions if he didn't hear the announcement that students should return to the classroom. The MC asked why the man is getting angry. He says he thought Juman might be looking for the bracelet, so he brought it to his teacher. Since he had overheard some things during the exam, he had heard that they had placed a restriction on dangerous abilities that exceeded a certain power level. But the ability that Seek was using was so powerful that even all the locks couldn't detect the skill. It destroyed the entire arena, and he asked if the man knew why no restriction was placed on such a dangerous ability. He says that the only possible explanation was that it was a core that hadn't been registered by the association. And after hearing that, the shameless man trembles, saying a teacher gave an unregistered core to a student. If it is discovered that this caused problems, things will get difficult for him. Juman says the protagonist was just spouting nonsense and asks, "Do you have any proof that you gave the ability to seek?" The MC responds that before the man was blinded by greed and interfered with the number of hunters sent home, it caused the annihilation of the 2nd District's field. For that reason, he cut off all the man had in his body and removed all his team members from the camp. And was it just a coincidence that I'm seeing the same abilities from before? He asks, ones that aren't common skills? When he mentioned the name of the minor character he had cut off moments ago, the man asked, "Who even are you? How do you know my father's identity?" Even the protagonist was surprised, as he didn't know that Jun was Cha's son, though it wasn't shocking since the two had done the same things in their lives. And right after saying that, he lands a strike on the man's face, adding, "Because of your actions." One of his students lost an arm, and today, several students almost lost their lives. Even 2 years ago, he had already made huge mistakes. But there was one thing he could never tolerate, no matter what happened: people ruining what he had worked so hard to build, something he had put his life into. He says he's going to ask a question, and the shameless man must answer immediately. Then he asked, "Was it you who gave the unregistered core to seek?" But the man says nothing. He even tries to escape from the protagonist and attempts to grab the bracelet to attack him. He actually manages to grab it, then tries to strike our hero with it. But in reality, it wasn't like that at all. He throws the bracelet to the ground and destroys the item out of nowhere. The guy then starts kicking the item, trying to destroy it completely. He looks proudly at the protagonist, thinking there's no way he could be incriminated anymore. He asks, "What do you think you're going to save the police? You have no evidence. Do you really think they'll believe the word of a high school student? Adults aren't a joke. I didn't just do this to seek. I was even attacking the teacher." And from that moment on, our hero's school life was over because no one would believe him. But then he trembled again as someone arrived, asking why it was so noisy there. That person was obviously our director, who had arrived to set things straight. German said the president arrived just in time, as the protagonist was threatening him and had even attacked him. For that reason, the MC should be expelled from school. But Woik said the man had broken the mirror and needed to lower his voice. Trying to escape that situation, the man claimed he had broken the mirror by accident. So the protagonist asked if the director had heard that. After all, he hadn't done anything and was an innocent person. But Woik said that in reality, he thought the teacher had done it. Then he asked if our hero had found any clues. The protagonist threw the phone into the director's hand. The man said that Joonwu should be more careful since there were still many installments left to pay. He also said that his boss should learn how to use his phone. And while the MC was scolding Woik, the shameless man watched the situation in disbelief. As he was leaving, the director asked what they should do. The protagonist said, "First." The school would have to announce that the event had happened. Juman asked, "Why is the president using formal language with a student?" But Woik ignored him and spoke to someone on the phone. Make an official statement, he instructed. This matter involves an illicit request. The teacher, now frightened, asked, "What are you doing, director? If you go through with this, it won't just affect you. Even Minister Manon will be impacted. Can you handle the consequences?" The director replied, "I haven't forgotten what happened during the accident 2 years ago. If this had just been an accident, I would have nothing to be ashamed of. But now something like this has happened again, and I can't look at that person without feeling ashamed." This left the man confused. Woik explained, "You don't understand how things work. Wasn't I clear last time? The only person I fear is Joonwu from 4 years ago." Then he thanked Jungmin for all the hard work he had done for the school over the years. As Woik left, the man called out to the president, but Woik didn't care and kept walking. "It will be difficult to connect the teacher to the minister," Woik said. "And there might not even be an investigation," the MC said. "But once something goes public, it's hard to hide what happened." He paused before continuing, "That's why you should spread the word as much as possible. I know someone in the media. Ask them to share the information as widely as they can." Then he hesitated for a moment before asking, "Can you do me another favor?" His friend looked at him, waiting for the request. "It's about Chong's son," the MC said. "He was unfairly dismissed while investigating what happened 2 years ago. He's probably eager for revenge, and we should give him a chance." The MC looked down briefly, then quickly added, "But are you okay? Your arm, I mean. The penalty from the guillotine blade is hard to endure with your physical condition. I've seen it myself, even landed a hit on the arm before." The system chimed in. "The penalty has been activated on the user, meaning the conjurer will experience the same state as the target affected by the weapon's ability." Woik furrowed his brow. "You should go to the doctor and get some medicine," he suggested. The MC shrugged. "I'm fine. Don't worry about it." As he turned to leave, he added, "Take care of what I asked. I've got something to return, so I'll head out first." While the MC was walking away, the director stood in the distance, watching the protagonist with a smile on his face. Somewhere else, Hyan was sitting on a bench in the square. Someone said they had finally found their friend. That person was the protagonist, who replied that he had been looking for Han for a while. The boy asked our hero, was that intentional? Did you fight with your weaker hand on purpose, just to show me something? The protagonist smiled. Han's grandfather's story was not an exaggeration, he said. That's why I wanted to show you, and that's all. He continued, no matter what you feel in this moment, the rest will depend entirely on you. He handed Han the wooden sword. The boy took the sword and stared at it for a few seconds. Our hero was walking away, and that was it. Even though the boy was about to say something, in the end he didn't. For some reason, he had a guilty look as he stared at the blade in his hand. But in truth, it wasn't guilt. He was simply wondering if he could really do all the things the protagonist had done with just one arm. Then suddenly something happened that he couldn't quite understand. In reality, the father of their third greatest goat was calling him. He felt a bit confused, unsure why his father was calling. But in the next moment, the man asked, "Are you okay?" He had heard that something had happened at school, so he asked if his son had been injured. Hen said that he was fine and that nothing had happened. The man sighed in relief, explaining that he hadn't seen the event because of work. He then asked his son to come home earlier, to which the boy agreed. But still, the video was circulating. The man asked, who was the boy, a one who was using a sword with only his left hand? He was even wielding the same sword as Hoon. Realizing that his son hadn't responded, the man continued, if it's difficult for you to answer, you don't have to. You're probably tired of hearing stories like that anyway. However, the next moment, the boy spoke up. I won't give up. I'm definitely going to become a hunter authorized by the association, and I won't stop no matter what happens. Meanwhile, a news report was covering the incident at the school. The report detailed the accident that had caused the destruction of the auditorium. It also stated that the police were investigating the minister to determine whether there had been a request for the illegal ability. At the school's academy, where the protagonist and the heroine were still training, someone was watching the news circulating on various websites. That person was our hero, who thought that public opinion seemed to be going well. It was also great that Dawn had gotten his job back. Ain says that Joonwu had been looking at his phone for a long time. She mentions that people wouldn't stop talking about our hero, and probably everyone at school already knew him. However, he asks, isn't the same thing happening to you? People are talking more about you than about me. There were several comments praising her for holding her ground against Seek for a while in the arena. In the next moment, the heroine starts blushing. Joonwu says, people are even calling you the One-Punch Girl. Right after that, someone enters the room and asks if they were still training. Obviously, it was Hyan, who congratulates her for becoming a member of the council. But our heroine asks, what are you talking about? Even the MC didn't understand, saying that she hadn't been officially nominated and that it was too soon to relax until it was confirmed. But Hyan says, you never know what could happen. However, in the next moment, our hero was surprised. The boy says that he had practiced with the guillotine blade every day, but even so, he wasn't doing very well. Because of that, he had a small problem. The protagonist says he would tell his friend, but it wouldn't be easy, because if he wanted to be as good as his grandfather, he would have to go through a lot. The boy smiled and said, even if it wasn't easy, I don't care. I want to become stronger. He then asked our hero to teach him. Ain told Hen, be careful, the MC is really scary. The protagonist replied, if you have complaints, you can stop training with me. At that moment, someone arrived, calling the boy son, which surprised the protagonist. It was Hen's father. He asked, are these two your friends? And added, it's a pleasure to meet you. The man continued, saying that he knew about our hero and had been impressed by his fight, especially since he had seen the boy using the same sword as his father. He said, I'm surprised. Is your name Joonwu? The MC confirmed. Back in the past, 3 men were begging the protagonist not to expel him from the camp. However, our hero didn't care and said, my teammates should exclude you. The extras kept begging for forgiveness, still pleading as the protagonist walked away from that place. The base was in ruins with flames everywhere, and most of the structures were in ruins. Someone called out to our hero again, saying that they had found a survivor in that place, and it was a child. The protagonist thought that this 10-year-old child had really grown up a lot. Now she even had a son. He thought to himself that it was a complicated feeling. A few hours later, someone announced that the class was over. Starting the next day, students could apply for the council. Anyone who wanted to join should go to the office to get the application form. After hearing that, some extras started talking among themselves, and the protagonist stood up. He said that he and our heroine should sign up. He asked, does it really have to be today, or can we register tomorrow? Our hero replied that there was something he wanted to check, so it had to be today. At the office of the college where our hero studied, he and our girl were standing in front of the door. She asked, what's wrong? Aren't you going to enter? The protagonist told her to wait, as he wanted to check something. In the next moment, someone was leaving the office. It was a girl who hadn't appeared until now. She was probably just an extra or maybe someone important in the future. But actually, I think she isn't anyone important. And it's just an extra, she said, because she said she knew our hero and that he was the one who defeated Juch. It was amazing to see a celebrity in person. Then she looked to the side and saw our heroine. Are you the protagonist's girlfriend? She asked. At that moment, An started blushing and quickly replied, it's not like that at all. We're just classmates. The girl smiled. I was just joking. I already knew our heroine. She continued talking about a bunch of boring things, telling our couple that she was a student from Class B. The protagonist thought to himself that he didn't like the way she was speaking. The girl then extended her hand toward our heroine, saying, my name is, and asked, can the three of us be friends? But our couple didn't say anything. They just exchanged peculiar expressions as they looked at the girl. You shouldn't be so cautious, the girl said. Since we'll be seeing each other often, there's no need to be shy. The protagonist frowned. Why? Because, the girl answered, I've also applied for the student council. There's no reason not to, right? Besides, your skills are too good for someone from Class E, and, well, Seek has been expelled. It's practically impossible for the three of us not to be accepted. With a smile, our hero said, that's really interesting. Since Kak didn't apply to the council and was expelled, claiming her spot was already secured, it meant the results had already been decided. With a distinct expression, he asked, are you affiliated with the association? The girl didn't answer. Instead, she started trembling. Our protagonist thought he was right, and there was only one thing left to confirm. The reason he hadn't entered earlier was to wait by the door. Everyone who wanted to join the council would go to the office, and then he could find someone from the association. His prediction was spot on, as he soon found one of them. But actually, she didn't tremble for long. In the next moment, she smiled and said, no one besides the school executives should know about the association. Our hero replied, I have some people feeding me information. The girl said it wasn't a coincidence that Seek was eliminated, and now I understand the real reason why. To be honest, she wasn't someone who liked the things he did either, and even if he got expelled to Class E, he shouldn't bring shame to Class B. As she kept rambling on, our couple continued to watch her with their usual expressions. Extending her hand again, she said, there's no reason for you to be worried. But once again, our couple kept ignoring her with those same expressions. The girl was getting irritated and asked, are you women play hard to get? Becoming friends with Class B students would be good for you. The MC said, I'm not sure about that. Warren started laughing and said, you really don't know anything, do you? Have you lost touch with reality because you became famous? Do you really think all the student council members are on the same level? The protagonist thought that the girl wasn't completely wrong. Even his own friend had been treated poorly by the council members when he first joined. He then said, I don't care if you're from Class B or if you get accepted into the council. I only came here to find her. I'm not interested in making friends here. From the beginning, you picked the wrong opponent. After hearing that, the girl looked confused. The protagonist explained, the reason is simple. I'm not applying for the council. In reality, Anne is the one interested in it. And after hearing that, the girl finally realized that from the very beginning, she had been fighting the wrong person. A few hours later, on the face of someone, though who, no one knew. Some people were discussing the case of the shameless teacher and the minister, who were both under investigation. These people were part of the association and were worried that if the two admitted the association's involvement, they would be exposing themselves. A woman says, even if the minister doesn't say anything, we could still get caught in the investigation. It wasn't as if we came this far easily. A man says, all the associations could be in danger if this is discovered, so we can't just sit back and watch the situation unfold. Another man agrees, adding, the director was present in the third-year association. It seemed like they were talking about Director Wood. People will assume that's the case, since he was a member of the board of directors and had influence in the hunting industry. He pauses, then continues, but it really wasn't Wood. A shadow appears, one that clearly doesn't belong to him. This guy is tough. He has established multiple associations. The woman from earlier says, if this situation continues, the important thing is that the vice president becomes an executive. If things turn out differently, we'll need to change our plans. The man replies, I've already considered that. It will be difficult to continue working with Minister O. I think this guy they're talking about is Suck's father. The woman asked if everyone there didn't at least have a contract with the minister. The man replies, we had some dealings, but nothing significant. Another person says, we discussed a few things with the minister, but it wouldn't be a problem if they didn't work out. He had other plans. Still, it's an embarrassment that the department minister is out, another adds. Then someone says, depending on who replaces Juch, we might be able to fill the vacant spot. At that moment, they all think of our hero. Someone asks, does it really have to be him? Another person replies, there's no reason for him not to become a member. But the previous person argues it's not ideal for someone without connections to enter. However, the woman from the beginning says that's not the case. No matter how much I think about it, something about the situation seems suspicious. Since the MC won the fight against Juch, it was a normal outcome, she continues. They shouldn't have to worry about it. But there's a problem. With Seek disqualified, the boy could just stay still and become a council member. Then, out of nowhere, the president himself made an official statement, and the man says it seems very strange how much they've escalated the issue. Because the president had nothing to gain from this. Normally, he would have chosen to cover up the case rather than expose the academy's flaws. Yet, he decided to publicly sever ties with the minister, and that could only mean one thing. There was something between the MC and the president, and it wasn't just any kind of relationship. It might even allow him to control the president like a puppet directly. Looking at the woman, one of the men asked, "Did you really mean that if Joonwu became a council member, the president would stay silent?" They had tried many times to contact him, but he never sold himself out. And now they were in the same boat. Even though his influence didn't compare to that of the board of directors, he was one of their former companions, so he might even be better than Minister O. The people felt proud of this, but one of them was looking at the situation with a doubtful expression. His name was Changyu, and he was wondering if everyone really intended to abandon Minister O. The project he was working on depended entirely on Namjin. Without his help, he wouldn't be able to do anything. With the minister's downfall, he was the only one completely screwed in this situation. Now that things had turned out this way, his position was about to collapse, and he needed to find a way to stay on top. In the next moment, his daughter was calling, and he wondered why she was calling right now. He said, "I'm busy," but the girl replied, "Our hero won't be running for the council." After hearing that, the man was shocked. "I think this girl was the one who was talking to the protagonist earlier. It really was her." She continued, "On is going to apply, and I'm certain of it because I asked the teacher to make sure." The man thought her heroine was Uncha's sister, and that she was definitely the granddaughter of Seaktu, one of the most influential people at the moment. It wasn't as if anyone besides Joonwu running for the council would change anything, but the situation would be completely different if it were On. In the next moment, someone asked, "Is something wrong with our boss?" But the man replied, "It's nothing. I need to leave. My daughter called and needs my help." Finally, all that conversation was over. I was going crazy writing so much of their dialogue. In the parking lot, the man was using his phone. He called someone whose identity had not yet been revealed. "But now we know who it was," as the man asked. "Am I speaking with ants? I have something very important to discuss with you." A few hours later, at a restaurant, Che asked how the man got her number. The man said, "My guild is still one of the largest in the country. We have the contact information of almost every hunter." He paused. "I apologize for reaching out to you so suddenly." The girl responded, "You mentioned you had something important to tell me. What is it?" The man leaned in slightly and replied, "You probably already know that the first-year students are trying to join the council. Do you know who is planning to run?" Jess nodded. "I have an idea, even though I don't like him." The man shook his head. "If you think it's the MC, you're wrong. My daughter told me the person running for the council isn't the protagonist." "Then who is it?" The girl asked, her curiosity piqued. The man smiled slightly. "In reality, it's Ayan." The girl was taken aback. "Ayan?" she asked, her surprise evident. She quickly followed up, "Where did you get this information?" He leaned back, crossing his arms. "I heard it from my own daughter. She said that ever since Ju got involved in this, he no longer cared about the council. But she's different." The girl frowned. "What exactly do you mean by that?" The man's expression grew more serious. "It's obvious. If your sister becomes a council member, Yudi will become more worried. The situation with your family will likely escalate because of it. And if that happened, he was sure that CFD wouldn't be pleased. And of course, that wouldn't be good for the girl either. He said that he could help with the situation under certain conditions, and she didn't need to worry too much since they weren't impossible demands or anything that would inconvenience her." Then the man asked our second heroine to take his daughter on a public hunt and during an interview to say that Hin was her competent disciple. The man then asked if her expression meant she was confused by his request. He explained that his guild was very large in Korea, but they couldn't compare to the Hunter Association. But he continued, "Besides being a council member, my daughter is also under Che's guidance." The girl asked if that was really what he wanted for his daughter. Chang Su said that she was right. Just as she had increased the association's influence, Jin could become the face of the Acres Guild. In that way, he wouldn't need the minister or director seek to anymore. But he admitted that his daughter's skills weren't good. She had only reached Class B because he had used his influence. Chad asked, "Wouldn't it make more sense to hire a teacher for her?" The man said there was no need for that. He didn't need real ability. From the start, his daughter had no talent as a hunter. And as her father, he already knew that very well. That was why he needed to be efficient. The girl asked if the man planned to turn his daughter into a mascot. He said that was exactly it. He told her this should be enough to cover everything and asked what she thought about it. She said he had mentioned a plan and asked what it was. He replied that she didn't need to worry because he wouldn't go as far as director Sayako. But after saying that, he told himself he shouldn't have mentioned the director. He added that in any case, she didn't need to worry because he was just going to send his team to scare her. Jess said that wouldn't work on her sister. So he asked if the second heroine had a better plan for it. The girl said that he should do everything to stop her, even if they had to use force. Before leaving, she said she had just one more thing to say. She asked if the man had told the other parents in the association or something like that. However, Chang was surprised after hearing that. With his usual expression, he asked who would benefit from this. A few years ago, there were 2 photos at a funeral. 2 people were kneeling on the ground looking at it. One of them was our heroine crying. Someone approached from behind, saying that even after the coffin was closed, those people were still acting that way. A woman looks at the man with an irritated expression. She moves toward him and asks, "How dare you appear in this place after doing all those things?" That person was saying so many things. In her mind, the blame for her daughter's elimination was on him. But actually, I would think it was just in her head. She asked, "Did you really think no one would find out that it was all your fault?" However, his expression doesn't change. He says, "I was also sad about losing my son. It wasn't enough that my son was taken from me. Even my life was stolen. Shouldn't I be the one feeling angry?" After hearing that, the woman was confused but was still crying. I think she was giving up because I believe her name started trembling out of nowhere. That's right. She tells the man to leave that place. The man says, "I'll put some money in your account because of what happened." Then, the next moment, he looks back and sees that our heroine is looking at him with tears on her face. He calls out, "Che, let's leave this place." Man, Che was heartless since childhood. She was expressionless. In that situation, she turned her back without even caring about what happened. And guys, this is the moment I will no longer call her the second heroine. While leaving, the woman says, "You'll be eliminated sooner or later." She keeps saying this as he walks away without looking back. Back to the present, our heroine wakes up from that dream, one that might have actually happened in the past. She tells herself that in the past few days, she's been dreaming about it constantly. She looks to the side and sees a picture of her family from many years ago. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye-bye.